The November wind bit through my coat as I stepped out of the Uber at the bottom of my parents' driveway. Another Thanksgiving, another family gathering, another round of questions I would deflect with practiced ease. My brother Tyler's face appeared at the front door before I even made it halfway up the walkway, his grin already spreading wide with that familiar, teasing look. "Let me guess Celia still haven't learned to drive," he called out loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I smiled, shifting my simple purse on my shoulder, feeling the weight of the key fob inside that was worth more than his assumptions about my life. As I climbed the steps to the warm house filled with relatives and the smell of turkey, I prepared myself for what was coming. The warmth of my childhood home enveloped me as Tyler held the door open, still chuckling at his own joke. Seriously, though, 32 years old and still taking Uber everywhere, that's got to be expensive. I shrugged off my coat, a simple black wool piece I'd owned for years, and handed it to him without responding to the bait. The house buzzed with familiar voices drifting from the dining room. My mother, Eleanor, appeared from the kitchen floor, dusting her apron, relief flooding her face. "Celia, honey, you made it. I was worried about you traveling alone." She hugged me tightly, whispering, "Your father saved you a seat away from Uncle Frank. You know how he gets about career advice after his third glass of wine." Following her through the hallway lined with family photos, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. Plain sweater, simple jeans, minimal makeup. Nothing that would draw attention or questions. Exactly how I preferred it. The dining room erupted in greetings as I entered. My successful cousin Madison looked up from her phone, her perfectly manicured nails pausing mid-scroll. "Celia still doing that freelance writing thing." She said freelance, like it was a temporary affliction, something one recovered from eventually. Still at it. I confirmed, taking my designated seat between my grandmother Betty and my younger sister Ashley, who barely glanced up from her medical journal. Aunt Dorothy leaned forward from across the table, her voice carrying that particular tone of concern reserved for family members who hadn't met expectations. "And you're still living in that tiny studio downtown. Such a shame for a young woman to be cramped in those small spaces. Madison just showed me her new 3-bedroom in Westchester. Maybe she could give you some tips on finding something more suitable." My mother jumped in quickly, her voice bright with forced optimism. "Celia's had some articles published recently, very interesting pieces about technology and innovation." Tyler snorted as he dropped into his seat, his wife Jennifer elegant beside him in designer clothes. "Mom, nobody reads articles anymore. It's all videos and social media. That's where the money is." He turned to me with exaggerated concern. "I offered to teach you to drive years ago. Remember, the offer still stands. Can't build a real life depending on public transportation." Uncle Frank, my father's brother, who owned several car dealerships across the state, cleared his throat meaningfully. "Speaking of which, Celia, I've got some excellent used cars on the lot right now. Very reliable, great payment plans. I could work something out for family, help you get on your feet properly. A Honda Civic may be perfect starter car for someone in your situation." I busied myself with unfolding my napkin, arranging it carefully in my lap. "That's very generous, Uncle Frank. I'll keep it in mind." My phone vibrated in my purse. Without looking, I knew what it was. The gentle buzz pattern was distinctive, set only for notifications from my investment portfolio. Another milestone crossed, another million added to the valuation. I silenced it with a subtle movement, keeping my expression neutral as Grandmother Betty patted my hand. "Don't you worry about these folks, dear," she said quietly, though her voice carried the tremor of age. "Some flowers bloom later than others." Jennifer leaned around Tyler, her smile practiced and pitying. "I love your sweater, Celia. Target." "They have such nice things these days. Almost looks designer if you don't look too close." "Something like that." I murmured, though the sweater was actually a custom piece from a sustainable fashion startup I'd invested in. Plain by design, extraordinary in craftsmanship, but she'd never know the difference. Madison waved her phone, showcasing photos of her new BMW. "Just got this baby last month. The commission from the Riverside sale. You should see how smooth it drives." "Do you ever miss driving, Celia? Or have you just gotten used to the bus schedules by now?" My father Robert entered then carrying the turkey with ceremonial importance. His eyes found mine immediately, that particular mixture of love and disappointment I'd grown accustomed to over the years. "There's our rider," he said, setting the platter down. "Saw you at the bus stop on 5th Street last week, but traffic was too heavy to stop. Made me worry, sweetheart. Not the safest neighborhood." "I'm careful, Dad," I assured him, helping pass plates as my mother brought in the side dishes. Ashley finally looked up from her journal, her doctor's coat still draped over her chair back from her hospital shift. "Statistically, public transportation is quite safe, Dad, though I suppose the time inefficiency would be frustrating. How many hours do you lose each week to commuting Celia?" The question hung in the air as everyone began serving themselves. I thought about my actual commute, the 3-minute elevator ride from my penthouse to my office on the floor below. But that wasn't what they were asking about. "I manage my time well enough," I said, simply accepting the mashed potatoes from Grandmother Betty. Tyler launched into a story about their new vacation home in the Hamptons, Jennifer adding details about the renovation plans. Madison competed with tales of her real estate conquests, each sale more impressive than the last. Ashley contributed hospital anecdotes that showcased her rising status in the medical community. I listened, nodded, smiled at appropriate moments. My phone buzzed again. This time, a different pattern. My assistant probably confirming tomorrow's board meeting. The tech world never truly stopped, not even for holidays. I let it go to silent, focusing instead on the family dynamics playing out before me. "Celia, honey, you're so quiet," Aunt Dorothy observed. "You must have some news to share. Any interesting developments in your life?" I sipped my water, considering. There were so many developments I could share. The latest acquisition offer, the expansion into European markets, the sustainable technology initiative that would revolutionize digital publishing. Instead, I offered, "I've been working on some fascinating projects, still finding my rhythm with everything." Uncle Frank nodded sagely. "Finding your rhythm. That's a nice way to put it. You know, my dealership is looking for a receptionist. Steady hours, health benefits, dental insurance. Might be good to have something stable while you figure out this writing business." The table murmured approval at his generosity. Madison added, "Stability is so important. I could never handle the uncertainty of freelancing, not knowing where your next paycheck comes from. The stress would kill me." My phone illuminated briefly with another notification. This time I caught a glimpse of the sender. The Forbes editor following up about the 30 under 30 feature. I turned the phone face down, returning my attention to the conversation flowing around me. "Well," I said, reaching for the green beans, "uncertainty has its own rewards sometimes." Tyler laughed, spoken like someone who's never had a car payment. "Trust me, sis. Once you have real responsibilities, you'll understand why the rest of us chose traditional careers." The irony of his statement, considering I'd quietly paid off his student loans last year through an anonymous donation to his loan servicer, was not lost on me, but I simply smiled, letting the assumption stand. As the meal continued, I felt the familiar weight of their concerns, their judgments, their well-meaning but misguided attempts to fix what they perceived as my broken life. And in my purse, my phone continued its silent celebrations, each notification, another reminder of the gap between their perception and my reality. The conversation flowed on, and I let it wash over me like a familiar tide, knowing that soon enough the truth would surface. But for now, I was content to play the role they'd cast me in: the struggling writer, the family project, the one who needed saving. It was easier than explaining why I chose buses over private cars, why I lived simply when I could afford excess, why success to me looked nothing like the picture they painted. Grandmother Betty squeezed my hand again under the table, and I squeezed back. Maybe she knew. Maybe she just loved me regardless. Either way, her quiet support was worth more than all the BMW photos and vacation home stories combined. The turkey was delicious, the stuffing perfect, and the company exactly as expected. My family in all their flawed, judgmental, loving glory. They thought they knew my story, but they'd only read the cover. The real chapters were yet to come. The main course gave way to comfortable chatter as everyone settled into their seats, more fully wine glasses refilled and guards lowering with each sip. Madison, now on her second glass of Pinot Noir, shifted the conversation with the precision of someone accustomed to controlling negotiations. "So Celia," she began, her voice carrying that false sweetness I remembered from childhood when she'd convinced me to trade my Halloween candy for her better pieces. "I've been meaning to ask about your transportation situation. I mean public buses. In this economy, I did a cost analysis for my clients once, and between the time lost and the indirect routes, you're basically burning money." She pulled out her phone again, the latest model naturally, and began scrolling through photos. "This is my new BMW Series 5. The leather seats are heated and cooled. Massage function too. Sometimes I just sit in the garage and relax after a long day of showings." She held the phone up for everyone to admire, ensuring I had a clear view. "The monthly payment is probably less than what you spend on ride shares and bus passes combined." Jennifer nodded enthusiastically, her diamond earrings catching the light. "Oh, I know exactly what you mean about the car being a sanctuary. Our Tesla has this amazing sound system. Tyler, show them that video of the butterfly doors opening." Tyler obliged, producing his phone with practiced ease. "Check this out, Celia, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Not that you'd know what that feels like." His laughter had an edge to it, the same tone from when we were kids, and he'd exclude me from games because I was too slow. My father, who had been unusually quiet, finally set down his fork. His expression carried that particular brand of paternal concern that made my chest tighten. "Celia, I need to be honest with you. Your mother and I worry. Just last month, Mrs. Henderson from church mentioned she saw you waiting at the bus stop in the rain. No umbrella, just standing there getting soaked. It broke my heart, sweetheart." I remembered that day. I'd been on a conference call with Tokyo and hadn't wanted to interrupt it by getting into my car where the Bluetooth would have taken over. The rain had been refreshing after 12 hours of negotiations. "I don't mind the rain, Dad," I said gently. "But you should mind," Ashley interjected, her doctor voice emerging. "Do you know how many respiratory infections are caused by prolonged exposure to cold and wet conditions and the bacteria on public transportation?" She shuddered delicately. "I've seen the lab results from bus seat swabs. It's basically a petri dish on wheels." She reached into her purse an elegant Chanel piece that probably cost more than most people's rent and produced a business card. "This is my friend, Dr. Patricia Reeves. She's a life coach who specializes in helping people get unstuck. She worked wonders for my colleague who was struggling to launch." The card slid across the table toward me with surgical precision. "A life coach." I picked up the card, studying it to avoid meeting anyone's eyes. "That's thoughtful, Ashley." "It's more than thoughtful, it's necessary," she pressed on. "You're 32, Celia. By your age, I had my medical degree, my residency lined up, and a clear 5-year plan. Where's your 5-year plan?" Tyler jumped back in, warming to the theme. "She's right. I mean, look around this table. Everyone here has made something of themselves. Real careers, real assets. Even Jennifer's younger sister just bought her first rental property, and she's only 25. Jennifer nodded sagely. "It's all about mindset, really. Have you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad Changed My Life? I could lend you my copy. It's highlighted and everything." Uncle Frank had been cutting his turkey with methodical precision, but now he looked up, his expression serious. "You know, Celia, I've been in business 40 years. Started with 1 used car lot, now I have 7 dealerships. You know what the difference was between me and the guys who failed transportation? Couldn't make the early morning auctions without a reliable car. Couldn't meet clients across town. Your vehicle is your first business asset." He pointed his fork at me for emphasis. "That receptionist position I mentioned, I'm serious about it. $22 an hour to start full benefits package. Marcy's retiring after Christmas. You could start fresh in the new year, get yourself a decent car with the employee discount. Nothing fancy, just reliable. Build from there." Madison snorted softly. 22 an hour, I make that in 6 minutes on a good commission. But I suppose for someone in Celia's position, it would be a step up from whatever freelance writing pays. What does freelance writing pay, by the way? The table turned to look at me expectantly. I took a careful bite of stuffing, chewing slowly while I formulated a response. The truth was, I hadn't actually looked at my personal compensation in months. When your company operates in the millions, individual paychecks become almost quaint. It varies, I said finally. Project-based work fluctuates. Fluctuates, Robert repeated, his voice heavy. That's what worries me. No stability, no security. What happens when you're sick? Who pays for your insurance? What about retirement? I have insurance, Dad. I assured him, not mentioning it was a platinum executive plan that covered everything from basic checkups to experimental treatments at Mayo Clinic. Ashley leaned forward, her expression serious. But do you have a 401k employer matching stock options? These things matter, Celia. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Tyler laughed outright. Stock options. In freelance writing, come on, Ashley. Next you'll be asking if she has a company car and a corner office. The irony was sharp enough to cut. I did have a corner office, top floor, 360-degree views of the city. The company car situation was more complicated given that I owned the company and could technically claim any vehicle in our fleet. I manage, I said simply. Managing isn't thriving, Madison countered. She pulled up something on her phone again, this time what looked like Zillow. I ran a search on studios in your area. The average rent is insane for such tiny spaces. Have you thought about relocating? I have connections in the suburbs. Much more affordable, better quality of life. You could probably even afford a parking spot for when you eventually get a car. Jennifer had been whispering with Tyler, and now she spoke up. We've been discussing it, and we want to make an offer. Our guest suite is just sitting empty. You could stay with us for a few months, save up money, get your life together. It has its own entrance, so you'd have privacy. The offer hung in the air like a challenge. Around the table, faces showed various degrees of approval for this generous solution to the problem of me. That's incredibly kind, I began, but Tyler interrupted. It's not about kindness, it's about family helping family. You've been struggling alone for too long, Celia. Time to swallow your pride and accept help. Grandmother Betty had been silent throughout this interrogation, but now she spoke softly. Pride isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it's all a person has. With all due respect, Grandma. Madison said, her tone suggesting very little respect. Indeed, pride doesn't pay bills or buy cars or secure futures. Celia needs practical help, not platitudes. The financial advisor family friend David Chen had been invited, as he had been for the past 5 years since helping my parents with their retirement planning. He'd been silent throughout dinner, but I noticed him glancing at me periodically with an expression I couldn't quite read. My phone buzzed again, this time with a pattern I recognized as urgent. 3 short pulses. My CFO only used that code for major developments. I ignored it, focusing on the concerned faces around me. I appreciate everyone's concern, I said carefully. Really, I do, but I'm doing fine. Fine. Robert's voice cracked slightly. Sweetheart, fine is what people say when they're drowning, but too proud to ask for a life preserver. Your mother cries sometimes, wondering where we went wrong, why you're struggling when we gave you every opportunity. Eleanor shot him a look but didn't deny it. The guilt was a familiar weight, one I'd carried since choosing to hide my success rather than share it. You didn't go wrong, I said softly. I'm just on a different path. A path to nowhere, Tyler muttered, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Look, I'm going to say what everyone's thinking. You're the oldest child. You're supposed to set an example. Instead, Ashley and I have to make excuses for you. Do you know how embarrassing it is when our friends ask about our freelance writer sister who takes the bus everywhere? The word embarrassing hit harder than I expected. Not because it was true, but because it revealed so clearly how he saw me. How they all saw me. The family failure. The cautionary tale. The one who couldn't quite launch. David Chen cleared his throat softly. If I may, he began, but I caught his eye and shook my head minutely. He subsided, but his expression remained thoughtful. "I think," Grandmother Betty said into the silence, "that we should remember what Thanksgiving is actually about. Being grateful for family, regardless of their circumstances." "Of course we're grateful," Dorothy said quickly. "That's why we're trying to help. What kind of family would we be if we just watched Celia struggle without offering solutions?" The solutions continued to pour forth. Ashley pulled up public transportation crime statistics on her tablet. Madison calculated the opportunity cost of time spent on buses versus driving. Uncle Frank sketched out a 5-year plan on a napkin that started with the receptionist job and ended with me potentially managing one of his smaller dealerships. Through it all, my phone continued its silent notifications. Each buzz another reminder of the strange double life I was living. In one reality, I was a failure who couldn't afford a car. In another, I was debating whether to accept a 9-figure acquisition offer. The contrast was dizzying, but I'd chosen this path. Chosen to see whether my family's love was conditional on success. Chosen to protect relationships from the corruption of money. Chosen to be valued for who I was rather than what I owned. As the dinner plates were cleared and dessert was prepared, I excused myself to use the bathroom. In the quiet of the powder room, I finally checked my phone. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages. The Forbes article had gone live early. My anonymity was about to expire. I looked at myself in the mirror, seeing what they saw. Plain clothes, simple styling, nothing to indicate the truth. But behind my eyes, I could see the exhaustion of maintaining this charade, the weight of their disappointment, the pain of their pity. Soon, I told my reflection. Soon they would know. But not yet. There were more acts to play in this family drama, more assumptions to endure, more offers of salvation to deflect. I returned to the dining room to find them still discussing my situation, plans forming interventions, organizing. The night was far from over, and neither was their determination to save me from a life they couldn't understand I'd chosen. The irony was perfect and perfectly painful. They thought they were rescuing me from failure. In reality, I was trying to rescue us all from the poison of success. The migration from dining room to living room happened gradually, people carrying coffee cups and dessert plates settling into the familiar furniture of my childhood. The room hadn't changed much over the years. Same brown leather couches, same family photos covering the walls, same upright piano in the corner that nobody played anymore. I found myself strategically placed in the center of the main couch, flanked by Ashley on one side and Madison on the other. It felt less like casual after-dinner relaxation and more like a carefully orchestrated intervention. The rest of the family arranged themselves in a semicircle, their faces showing varying degrees of concern and determination. Uncle Frank kicked things off, setting down his coffee with the authority of someone used to closing deals. "All right, Celia, let's talk seriously here. This receptionist position, it's not charity. Marcy's been with me 23 years. She started exactly where you'd be starting, and now she's got a house, 2 kids through college retirement fund that'll let her travel the world. That could be you." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through something before showing me the screen. "This is the benefits package. Health, dental, vision, life insurance, disability coverage. After 90 days, you're eligible for the 401k match. I match up to 6%. Do you know how many people would kill for these benefits?" "Frank's being modest," Aunt Dorothy chimed in. "He's the best employer in the county. Janie's daughter started there last year, and she's already been promoted twice. Of course, she had a car from day one, made it easier to take on additional responsibilities." Tyler had pulled out his laptop, balancing it on his knees with practiced ease. "I've been thinking about this all through dinner. Your problem is branding Celia. Nobody takes freelance writers seriously because there's no barrier to entry. Anyone can call themselves a writer. But look at this." He turned the screen toward me, showing what appeared to be a LinkedIn profile. I had Jennifer's cousin redesign my profile last year. Went from maybe 50 views a month to over 1,000. It's all about positioning yourself correctly. I could introduce you to him, maybe barter some services. You write his website copy, he fixes your professional presence. That's actually not a bad idea, Jennifer added, perching on the arm of Tyler's chair. Personal branding is everything these days, though honestly, Celia, you might want to consider pivoting entirely. Writing is so oversaturated. Everyone thinks they can write because they post on social media. Madison nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. That's why I suggested real estate. The barrier to entry is low, just a licensing exam, but the earning potential is unlimited. I cleared $250,000 last year, and I'm only getting started. You're personable enough, Celia. With some polish, you could do well. She pulled out a folder she'd apparently brought specifically for this purpose. I took the liberty of printing out the pre-licensing course information. It's only 75 hours of study, then the exam. I could mentor you, show you the ropes. We could even do some open houses together until you build your confidence. Ashley had been furiously typing on her phone, and now she looked up with triumph. I just texted Patricia, the life coach. She has an opening Monday afternoon. I'll cover the first session, call it an early Christmas present. She specializes in late bloomers, people who need help finding their direction. Late bloomer, I repeated, tasting the phrase. At 32, with a company valued at over $100 million, I suppose I was blooming late by their standards. Don't take it personally, Ashley said quickly. It's just a term. Lots of successful people don't find their path until later. Colonel Sanders was 62 when he franchised KFC. Tyler snorted. Are we really comparing Celia to Colonel Sanders? At least he had a car. His whole business model depended on driving to restaurants. The laughter that followed had that uncomfortable edge of truth-telling disguised as humor. I sipped my coffee, letting the bitter warmth ground me in the moment. Robert cleared his throat, assuming what the family called his board meeting voice, though his actual board experience was limited to the local Rotary Club. I think what everyone's dancing around is the hard truth. Celia, sweetheart, you're 32 years old. By your age, I was married, had a mortgage, 2 kids, and a stable career at the firm. Your mother had her teaching credential and tenure track position. This bohemian lifestyle might have been charming in your 20s, but now it's just concerning. Bohemian is generous, Tyler muttered. Broke is more accurate. Tyler. Eleanor scolded, but weakly, suggesting she might not entirely disagree. Uncle Frank leaned forward, his expression serious. Look, I'm going to be straight with you, Celia, because someone needs to be. In business, we call what you're doing playing not to lose instead of playing to win. You're so afraid of failure that you're not even trying. This writing thing, it's safe, because there's no real metric for success. No boss to disappoint, no quotas to miss, no performance reviews. But that also means no growth, no advancement, no future. He's right, Madison added, her voice taking on the tone she probably used with difficult sellers. I see it all the time in real estate. People get comfortable in their rentals, afraid to take the leap into ownership. They convince themselves they're being smart, flexible, keeping their options open. Really, they're just scared. Is that what this is? Celia fears, duh. The word hung in the air between us. Fear. Was I afraid? The thought was almost laughable. I'd stood before venture capitalists and demanded millions. I'd fired executives twice my age. I'd made decisions that affected thousands of employees. But here, in this room, with these people who'd known me since birth, I felt something that might have been fear. Fear that money would change how they saw me. Fear that success would build walls where blood should be bridges. My phone buzzed again. This time I recognized the international number flashing briefly on the screen. Tokyo calling back. The deal that would expand our Asian market by 300% was waiting for my input. I'm not afraid, I said quietly. I'm just living life on my own terms. Your terms are terrible, Tyler said bluntly. No offense, but what exactly are these terms? No car, no property, no visible success markers. What's the end game here? Ashley pulled out her tablet again, apparently having prepared a presentation. I did some research on freelance writing income. The median is around $35,000 a year. The top 10% might make $70,000. Even if you're in that top tier, which, let's be honest, is unlikely. Without major publication credits, you're still below the poverty line for sustainable middle-class life in this area. She showed me a graph, color-coded and professionally designed. This is the projected lifetime earnings gap between traditional employment and freelance work. By retirement age, you'll have lost over $2 million in potential earnings, not counting compound interest on investments you couldn't make. Jesus, Ashley. Grandmother Betty interjected. She's not a business case. She's your sister. Which is exactly why I'm doing this, Ashley responded. If she were just anyone, I wouldn't care. But she's family, and family tells hard truths. David Chen, the financial advisor, shifted in his seat. I could see him struggling with something, probably the confidentiality requirements of his profession. He knew the truth about my finances, had probably seen the public filings, the corporation documents. But he said nothing, just watched me with those calculating eyes. Uncle Frank was pulling up something on his phone now. You know what, I'm going to make this even easier. Look, this is Marcy's desk. Corner of the showroom, nice window view, your own computer printer, the works. I'll even throw in a parking space with your name on it. How's that for a sign of faith? And I'll help with the wardrobe, Jennifer offered. No offense, Celia, but professional presentation matters. I know a great outlet mall where we can build you a whole office wardrobe for under $500. My treat. The offers kept coming. Madison would waive her usual finder's fee if I wanted to look at apartments. Ashley would cover 3 months of life coaching. Tyler would help with LinkedIn optimization and professional headshots. My parents would loan me money for a car, down payment, interest-free, pay them back whenever I could. The generosity was overwhelming and heartbreaking in equal measure. They were offering everything they thought I needed, not knowing I could buy everything they were offering 1,000 times over. This is a lot to process, I said carefully. That's the problem, Tyler exploded. You always need to process, to think, to consider. Successful people act. They see opportunity and grab it. How many opportunities have you let pass while you were processing? If only he knew. The opportunities I'd grabbed created manufactured from nothing. The processing that had turned a dorm room idea into an empire. But he saw only what I showed him, a sister who couldn't even afford a car. Eleanor had been quiet, but now she spoke, her voice trembling slightly. I just want to know where I went wrong. We gave you the same opportunities as Tyler and Ashley. Same schools, same support, same love. Why are you struggling when they're thriving? The pain in her voice was real, and it cut deep. This masquerade wasn't just hiding my success, it was actively hurting the people I loved. But the alternative, revealing everything, now felt like it would shatter something essential about our family dynamic. You didn't go wrong, Mom, I said. People just take different paths. But your path leads nowhere. Robert's board meeting voice cracked, revealing the father underneath. I lie awake at night wondering what happens when we're gone. Who'll take care of you? How will you survive? Uncle Frank nodded grimly. He's got a point. I've seen it too many times. People coast through their 30s thinking they have time. Then suddenly they're 50 with no savings, no assets, no options. Is that what you want, Celia? The room fell silent, everyone waiting for my response. My phone screen lit up with another notification. This time, I caught a glimpse of the message preview. Congratulations on the Forbes feature, it began. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of timing. I appreciate everyone's concern. I began, but Tyler cut me off. No, you don't. If you appreciated it, you'd do something about it. You'd take the job, get the car, move forward like a normal person. Instead, you sit there with that little smile like you know something we don't like. This is all beneath you. His accusation hit closer to home than he could have known. I did know something they didn't. This was beneath me, not in the arrogant way he meant, but in the literal sense that my actual life operated on a level they couldn't imagine. Madison was pulling up more listings on her phone. Look, here's a 1-bedroom in Fairfield. Reasonable rent parking included near the train station for when you're still building credit for a car loan. I could show it to you tomorrow. And I can call Patricia right now. Ashley added, phone already in hand. Lock in that Monday appointment before her schedule fills up. The Corolla will be ready for a test drive whenever you want, Uncle Frank confirmed. Silver low mileage, one previous owner. Reliable as sunrise. They were building my new life in real time, each adding pieces to their vision of my salvation. A reception job, a sensible car, a proper apartment, a life coach to guide the transformation. From their perspective, they were throwing me a lifeline. From mine, they were planning a prison. Can I ask you all something? I said suddenly. What if I'm happy? What if this life you see as failure is actually what I want? The silence that followed was deafening. They looked at me as if I'd suggested I enjoyed dental surgery or preferred food poisoning. Happy, Jennifer repeated. Taking buses, living in a studio, no financial security. Nobody's happy with instability, Madison said firmly. They might pretend they or might convince themselves it's freedom or artistic integrity or whatever, but real happiness comes from achievement, from building something from success. Define success, I challenged. Tyler laughed humorlessly. Seriously, look around this room. Success is Ashley saving lives and earning respect. Success is Madison closing deals and building wealth. Success is me and Jennifer planning for our kids' college funds before we even have kids. Success is not being 32 and taking the bus. Grandmother Betty's hand found mine squeezing gently. Success, she said quietly, is different for everyone. With respect, Grandma, Ashley said that's the kind of thinking that enables failure. Success has objective markers: income, assets, professional achievement, social standing. These aren't opinions, they're measurable facts. The room erupted in agreement. Stories poured forth about colleagues who'd thought like me and ended up destitute. Cautionary tales of artistic types who'd prioritized passion over profit and paid the price. Statistics about poverty and retirement. The impossibility of catching up after a certain age. The closing window of opportunity. My phone buzzed one more time. This time, the caller ID showed clearly Forbes magazine. They were probably calling to fact-check something in the article, or maybe to arrange the photo shoot we'd postponed. I declined the call, but not before Tyler noticed. See, you can't even answer your phone. Probably debt collectors, right? Jesus, Celia. How deep are you in? I'm not in debt, I said truthfully. Sure, he said, clearly not believing me. Look, I know a good bankruptcy attorney if it comes to that. No judgment. Sometimes you need to wipe the slate clean and start over. The assumptions were spiraling now, each building on the last, constructing a narrative of failure, so complete that the truth would sound like fantasy in comparison. I was drowning in their good intentions, suffocating under their rescue attempts. I think, I said slowly, that I need some air. Of course you do, Tyler muttered. Classic Celia. Things get real and you need to run away and process. But I wasn't running. I was trying to save them from the truth they claimed to want. Because once they knew, everything would change. The concern would turn to calculation. The pity would become petitions. The family dynamic would shift from trying to save me to trying to get something from me. I'd seen it happen to others. Sudden success splitting families like lightning splits trees. I wanted to protect us from that, protect them from themselves, protect the love that, however misguided, was at least pure in its intention. Just think about the offers, Uncle Frank said as I stood. The job is there when you're ready. No pressure, but also no infinite timeline. Opportunities don't wait forever. Neither does life, Ashley added. 32 becomes 42 becomes 52 faster than you think. Don't waste your potential, Celia. We all know you're capable of more than this. If only they knew how much more, but that revelation would come soon enough. For now, I needed a moment to breathe, to prepare for the next act in this family drama. I'll be right back. I promised, heading for the door. Behind me, I could hear them continuing to plan my salvation, each idea more elaborate than the last. The love was real, even if the premises were false, and somehow that made it all so much harder. I never made it to the door. Tyler's voice stopped me before I could reach the hallway, his tone shifting from frustrated to something darker. "You know what? Sit back down, Celia. We're not done here." He was already pulling out his phone again, his fingers moving across the screen with purpose. "Since you think bus life is so great, let me show you something." Reluctantly, I returned to my spot on the couch. The family leaned in, sensing fresh ammunition for their intervention. Tyler's expression had taken on the look of a prosecutor presenting damning evidence. "Here," he said, showing his phone screen to the room. "Local news last Tuesday. Woman robbed at downtown bus stop in broad daylight. That's your bus stop, isn't it? Celia 5th and Main." I recognized the location, though I hadn't heard about the incident. Then again, I'd been in Singapore last Tuesday finalizing our Southeast Asian expansion. "Crime happens everywhere," I said evenly. "Oh, it gets better." Tyler continued scrolling through article after article. "Look at this. Bus driver assaulted during evening route. This one, police increase patrols after string of bus stop incidents. And here's my personal favorite. Study shows public transit users 3 times more likely to be crime victims." Jennifer had moved to look over his shoulder, gasping at each headline. "Oh my God, Tyler, look at this one. Woman followed home from bus stop." That could be Celia. Ashley pulled out her tablet, apparently prepared for this exact argument. "I actually researched this extensively for a hospital safety presentation. The statistics are alarming. Public transportation crime has increased 47% in urban areas over the last 5 years. The bacteria exposure alone should concern you, but add in the violence factor." She swiped through several graphs and charts, each more damning than the last. "See, this respiratory infection spreads 6 times faster in enclosed public spaces, like buses. And this study from Johns Hopkins documents the correlation between public transit use and exposure to airborne pathogens." "Forget germs," Madison interjected, pulling up something on her own phone. "Let's talk about time. Celia, I mapped your apartment to, let's say, the average workplace in the city. By car, 15 minutes. By bus, 45 minutes to an hour, assuming no delays. That's 90 minutes a day, 450 minutes a week, 23,400 minutes a year. You're literally wasting 16 days annually just sitting on a bus." She showed me the calculation color-coded and animated. "In real estate, we call this opportunity cost. Those 16 days, if you were working even at minimum wage, that's thousands of dollars lost. At a professional rate, we're talking serious money left on the table." Uncle Frank stood up, pacing now with the energy of someone delivering a crucial pitch. "Madison's right, but she's thinking too small. It's not just about time or money. It's about what you're telling the world about yourself. You know what I see when someone shows up to a business meeting on the bus? I see someone who can't get their life together enough to secure reliable transportation." He gestured broadly, warming to his theme. "Last month I had a sales candidate interview. Sharp kid, great resume. Mentioned he'd taken the bus to the interview because his car was in the shop. You know what that told me? Poor planning. No backup strategy. If he can't manage his personal transportation, how can I trust him with my customers?" "That seems harsh," I said, though I understood his point from a business perspective. "Harsh." Tyler laughed. "It's reality. Image matters. Perception is everything. You think Madison would sell million-dollar homes if she showed up in an Uber. You think Ashley's patients would trust her medical opinion if they saw her waiting at a bus stop." Ashley nodded emphatically. "He's absolutely right. Professional credibility requires certain markers of success. It's not shallow, it's psychological. Humans are hardwired to assess competence through external indicators. A car is one of the most basic indicators of adult functionality in American society." Robert had been sketching something on a napkin and now he held it up. "I did the math while you were all talking. Celia, a decent used car, let's say $15,000 financed over 5 years at reasonable interest. That's about $280 a month. Insurance, maybe another $100. Gas, let's say $150. So $430 monthly for complete transportation freedom." He slid the napkin toward me. "I already talked to my credit union. With my co-signature, you'd get approved immediately. 4% interest, no money down. You could drive away tomorrow with dignity restored. Dignity. I repeated the word, tasting bitter. Eleanor reached across to touch my hand. Sweetheart, he doesn't mean it like that. We just want you to have every advantage. The world is hard enough without making it harder on yourself. Tyler wasn't finished with his presentation. He'd pulled up a map of the city, red dots marking various locations. These are all the reported crimes at bus stops in the last 6 months. Notice anything, they cluster around the routes you'd have to take. You're literally traveling through the most dangerous parts of the city, because bus routes go where property values are lowest. That's actually an excellent point, Madison added. Real estate patterns follow transportation quality. Good neighborhoods have less public transit because residents don't need it. By relying on buses, you're forced to travel through areas you'd never choose to live in. Jennifer had been whispering with Dorothy, and now they both spoke up. We were just saying, Jennifer began, how this affects dating too. Celia, how do you even meet someone decent without a car? You can't offer to pick them up, can't meet somewhere spontaneous, can't take weekend trips. You're basically advertising that you're not relationship material. That's a bit extreme, Grandmother Betty protested, but even she looked troubled. Is it, though? Ashley pulled up what appeared to be a dating study. According to this research, having a car ranks in the top 5 attractiveness factors for both men and women. It signals stability, independence, and future planning ability. By not having a car at 32, you're essentially removing yourself from the viable dating pool. The assault continued from all angles. Uncle Frank shared horror stories from customers who'd been stranded by bus breakdowns. Tyler calculated the dating radius possible with public transit versus personal vehicles. Madison showed listings for apartments with attached garages, emphasizing how real adults lived. Ashley presented medical cases she'd treated that were directly related to public transit incidents. Through it all, my phone continued its silent symphony of notifications. The Tokyo deal, the Forbes article, the board meeting tomorrow, an entire secret life pulsing beneath the surface of this intervention. Here's what really gets me, Tyler said, his voice taking on a new edge of frustration. You're smart, Celia. You graduated summa cum laude. You had every opportunity we did. So this bus thing, this whole lifestyle, it has to be a choice. And I cannot for the life of me understand why anyone would choose this. Maybe because choices aren't always about optimization, I suggested. Maybe some people value different things. Like what? Madison demanded. What possible value is there in wasting time, risking safety, and limiting opportunities? I thought about my actual reasons, the environmental impact of single-passenger vehicles, the community connections formed on public transit, the thinking time during commutes, the human stories I gathered that informed my business decisions, but none of these would make sense to them in this context. I've met incredible people on buses, I offered, heard stories that changed my perspective, had time to think without the stress of driving. Tyler rolled his eyes so hard I worried they might strain something. Great. You've had nice chats with strangers while successful people drove past you to actual destinations. Very poetic, very impractical. David Chen, who'd been silent through most of this, finally spoke. Perhaps we're approaching this from the wrong angle. Celia, what would it take for you to consider getting a car? What concerns do you have that we could address? It was a lifeline, and I recognized it as such. He was trying to give me an out, a way to gracefully accept help without losing face. But I couldn't take it, not yet. The truth was too close to the surface now, threatening to spill over with every vibration of my phone. I appreciate everyone's concern, I began, but Tyler slammed his hand on the coffee table. Stop appreciating and start acting. Do you know how frustrating it is to watch you waste your life? Do you know how it reflects on all of us? I'm tired of making excuses for why my older sister is a failure. The word hung in the air like a physical blow. Failure. Is that what I represented to him? Years of carefully managed appearances, of deliberate simplicity, of choosing connection over exhibition, reduced to a single ugly word. "Tyler," Eleanor gasped, "apologize right now." "No," he said firmly. "I'm done enabling this. Someone needs to say what we're all thinking. Celia is a failure. She's 32 years old, takes the bus everywhere, lives in a tiny apartment, and has no visible means of success. If that's not failure, what is?" Ashley placed a hand on my shoulder, but her words supported Tyler. "He's expressing it harshly, but the sentiment isn't wrong. By every objective measure, you're not thriving. We're trying to help because we love you, but love sometimes means hard truths." The room erupted in a mixture of agreement and protest. Uncle Frank sided with Tyler about tough love. Dorothy worried about my feelings, but agreed action was needed. Robert struggled between defending his daughter and acknowledging the facts as presented. Eleanor cried quietly, which made everyone uncomfortable. Through it all, my phone kept buzzing. The outside world, my real world, demanding attention I couldn't give. I thought about the employees depending on my decisions, the innovations waiting for approval, the deals hanging in the balance. All of it seemed surreal compared to this moment this family convinced I needed saving from a life they couldn't understand I'd chosen. "You know what?" I said, suddenly standing up. "You're right, all of you. By your measurements, I am failing. I don't have a car, I don't have a mansion, I don't display success in ways you recognize. And maybe that makes me a failure in your eyes." "Celia." Robert started, but I continued. "But I need you all to consider something. What if your measurements are wrong? What if success isn't about cars and square footage? What if it's about something else entirely? Like what Tyler challenged, enlighten us. What's your grand philosophy that justifies wasting your potential?" I looked around the room at these people I loved, who loved me, who were so convinced they knew what was best for me. In a few hours, maybe less, the Forbes article would be public. The truth would out itself. But for now, in this moment, they needed to understand something fundamental. Success, I said slowly, is about being able to look at yourself in the mirror without flinching. It's about knowing your values and living them even when everyone thinks you're crazy. It's about choosing meaning over metrics, purpose over profit, connection over competition. "That's beautiful," Madison said sarcastically. "Very inspirational. Should we needle-point it on a pillow? Meanwhile, back in reality, you still need transportation." The doorbell rang suddenly, sharp and unexpected. Everyone froze, looking at each other in confusion. We weren't expecting anyone else. "I'll get it," Eleanor said, dabbing at her eyes as she headed for the door. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of something that made my heart skip. A familiar silhouette in the driveway, elegant and unmistakable. The early delivery I'd hoped to avoid. The truth arriving ahead of schedule. But before I could process the implications, Uncle Frank was drawing another diagram, Ashley was pulling up another study, and Tyler was finding more crime statistics. The intervention continued, relentless and loving, and completely missing the point. My phone buzzed once more. This time the message preview was visible to Ashley sitting close beside me. Her eyes widened as she read the words, "Congratulations on your Forbes 30 Under 30. Feature, when can we schedule the cover shoot?" She blinked, looked at me, then at the phone, then back at me. I could see the cognitive dissonance playing across her features. But before she could speak, Eleanor was returning from the door, looking puzzled. "Strange," she said. "Someone delivered a car, but they must have the wrong address. Beautiful silver Rolls-Royce. Can you imagine?" The room turned to look out the window where indeed a Rolls-Royce Spirit sat gleaming under the streetlights. Tyler laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "Great. Perfect timing. Someone's showing off their success right when we're trying to help Celia understand what she's missing. Universe has a sick sense of humor. If only he knew how sick." I sat back down, Ashley still staring at me with questions in her eyes. The final act was about to begin, whether I was ready or not. The carefully maintained fiction of my failure was about to collide with the reality of my success. And honestly, I wasn't sure which truth would hurt my family more, the lie I'd been living or the truth I'd been hiding. The debate continued around me, but I could feel the shift coming, the storm that would either destroy us or finally maybe help us find our way to something real, something beyond cars and apartments and all the measurements that meant everything and nothing at all. The conversation about transportation naturally morphed into an even more invasive examination of my living situation. Madison, still energized from her calculations about time wasted on buses, had pulled out her iPad and was now projecting the screen onto the TV using some app I didn't recognize. "All right, everyone, look at this," she announced with the authority of someone about to deliver a TED Talk. I pulled up the average listings in Celia's neighborhood, studio apartments, which is what she claims to have, range from 800 to 1,200 square feet. That's smaller than most people's garage. The Zillow map appeared on screen, little dots marking available properties. She zoomed in on my area, her finger tracing the boundaries of what she considered acceptable living. "Now look at this area over here." She continued shifting the map slightly east. "Similar pricing, but you get actual one-bedrooms. Some even have parking included. The crime rate is 40% lower, there's a Whole Foods within walking distance, and the school district is excellent for when you eventually think about the future." "She doesn't need to worry about school districts," Tyler interjected. "She'd need a relationship first, and we've already covered how that's going." Jennifer nodded sympathetically. "I actually know a great realtor in that area, not Madison, no offense. She specializes in helping single women find safe, affordable places. Very discreet about financial situations, too, in case credit is an issue." "My credit is fine," I said, which was true. Perfect, actually, though I rarely used it anymore. When you can buy things outright, credit becomes almost quaint. Ashley had commandeered part of the screen, pulling up what looked like a medical journal article. "Can we talk about the health implications of small living spaces? This study from Harvard Medical shows direct correlation between square footage and mental health outcomes. Living in under 1,000 square feet can increase anxiety by 30% and depression markers by nearly 50%. She turned to me with her doctor face on. "Celia, when was the last time you had a mental health screening? Small spaces can literally rewire your brain for scarcity thinking. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy." Dorothy leaned forward from her armchair, her expression mixing concern with something that looked like excitement. "You know, Gerald and I were just talking about downsizing. Our house is too big now that the kids are gone. We could work out something where you house sit for us while we travel. Free rent for a year while you get your finances in order." "That's generous, Aunt Dorothy, but I'm comfortable where I am," I replied. "Comfortable?" Tyler actually laughed. "In a studio, where do you even eat dinner on your bed? Do you have a real table or just one of those folding TV tray situations?" I thought about my actual dining situation, the custom 12-person table crafted from reclaimed wood by a local artist I'd commissioned. It overlooked the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows, but they were picturing something very different. "I manage," I said simply. Madison wasn't done with her presentation. She'd pulled up interior photos of various studio apartments. "Look at these layouts. See how the bed is basically in the kitchen, how there's no separation between living and sleeping spaces. Celia, this isn't poverty chic, it's just poverty. There's nothing wrong with simple living." Grandmother Betty interjected, but even she sounded uncertain. "Simple is one thing," Uncle Frank said, studying the screen. "This is deprivation. No home office space for your writing, no room to entertain, no privacy if you ever have overnight guests. Though I suppose the bus schedule prevents much late-night socializing anyway." Eleanor had been wringing her hands, and now she burst out. "Do you at least have proper furniture? Or are you still using those college futons and milk crates I kept offering to give you the guest bedroom set, but you always refused?" "I have furniture, Mom," I assured her, not mentioning it was custom designed by a firm in Milan. Ashley pulled up another study. The psychological impact of living in tiny spaces goes beyond just mental health. It affects productivity, creativity, even immune function. Your cortisol levels are probably through the roof. When was your last physical, I'm healthy? I said which was true. My executive physical last month had been comprehensive and glowing. Jennifer had been whispering with Tyler, and now she spoke up. We were serious about our offer earlier. Our guest suite is 2,500 square feet, completely private entrance, full kitchen. You could live there while saving money, maybe even help with the baby when we start trying next year. You'd be doing us a favor, really, Tyler added. The space is just sitting empty. We'd charge you basically nothing, just help with utilities. You could save up for a real place instead of throwing money away on rent. Robert cleared his throat, assuming his financial advisor voice. Let's talk numbers for a moment. Celia, what percentage of your income goes to rent? Financial experts recommend no more than 30%, but in high-cost areas, people often stretch to 40 or even 50%. If you're paying more than that for a studio, you're literally working just to have a roof over your head. I considered how to answer. The truth was I owned the building. My rent was a technical transfer between two of my companies for tax purposes, but explaining that would unravel everything. It's within reasonable bounds, I said carefully. Reasonable. Madison pulled up a rent calculator. Let's see. Average studio in your area is $1,800 a month. If that's 30% of your income, you're making $72,000 a year. Are you making $72,000 a year from freelance writing? Celia? The interrogation had taken on the quality of a financial audit. Everyone leaned in, waiting for my response. The truth was so far from their assumptions, it felt like speaking different languages. Income from creative work isn't always consistent month to month, I said, which was technically true. Some months I made millions, others merely hundreds of thousands. Tyler slapped his knee in frustration. This is exactly the problem: inconsistent income in an expensive studio. You're one bad month away from homelessness. How do you not see how precarious this is? I have savings, I offered. How much? Ashley demanded. 3 months of expenses. 6 months. The recommended emergency fund for freelancers is 12 months minimum. Do you have $22,000 sitting in savings? I thought about my actual savings spread across various accounts and investments. $22,000 was what I earned in interest in roughly 4 hours, but nodding would require explaining how, so I remained silent. Your silence speaks volumes, Uncle Frank said grimly. No car, tiny apartment, no savings buffer. Celia, this isn't independence, it's a house of cards waiting for the slightest breeze. Madison had moved on to mortgage calculators. With your income, assuming you could even document it properly for a lender, you'd qualify for maybe a $150,000 property. That's a condo at best and not in a good area. But even that would be better than throwing money away on rent. Rent isn't throwing money away, I said. It's paying for flexibility and freedom from maintenance. Spoken like someone who's never built equity, Tyler responded. Jennifer and I have gained $60,000 in home value in just 2 years. That's $60,000 we can leverage for investments, improvements, our kids' education. What have you gained from 2 years of rent? Flexibility to run a company without being tied to one location. Freedom to travel internationally at a moment's notice. Time saved from maintenance that I could dedicate to strategic planning. But these weren't answers they'd understand in this context. Dorothy had pulled out her phone and was showing Eleanor photos. Look, this is my cousin's daughter. Started out just like Celia, tiny apartment, artistic ambitions. You know where she's living now? Her car. Lost the apartment 3 months ago, too proud to ask for help until it was too late. The cautionary tale hung heavy in the air. Everyone looked at me as if I might be 3 months from vehicular homelessness myself. I'm not going to end up living in a car, I said firmly, especially since I don't have one. The attempted joke fell flat. If anything, it seemed to deepen their concern. This isn't funny, Celia, Robert said sternly. Your mother and I already discussed this. We're prepared to pay your security deposit and first month's rent on a proper apartment. Something with a bedroom door at least. You're our daughter. We won't let you struggle like this. And I'll waive all my fees, Madison added quickly. Full service, no commission. I'll negotiate the lease, handle the paperwork, even help you move. Family discount, which means free. The offers multiplied. Ashley would pay for a moving service. Jennifer would help decorate on a budget. Uncle Frank knew a guy who could get furniture wholesale. Dorothy had extra kitchenware from her downsizing. Everyone had a solution for my perceived destitution. My phone lit up with another notification. This time, the preview showed an image architectural renderings of some kind. My penthouse renovation was complete, the designer sending final photos. $20 million of custom luxury, and my family was offering me their old kitchenware. Here's what I don't understand, Tyler said, leaning back with his arms crossed. You had every advantage. Same parents, same schools, same opportunities. Ashley channeled her drive into medicine. I built a career in finance. But you're living like a college student a decade after graduation. Where's your pride? Tyler. Eleanor protested, but he held up a hand. No, Mom, this needs to be said. Pride matters. Self-respect matters. How can Celia respect herself living in a box, depending on strangers for transportation, scraping by on irregular income? This isn't bohemian, it's embarrassing. You're embarrassed by me, I said. It wasn't a question. He met my eyes directly. Yes, I am. When my colleagues ask about my family, I talk about Ashley the doctor. When they ask about you, I change the subject. Because what am I supposed to say? My older sister is a failed writer who can't afford a car. It's humiliating. The honesty was brutal, but not surprising. I'd suspected as much from the way he'd started excluding me from his professional social media posts, the way Jennifer always looked slightly uncomfortable when introducing me to her friends. Success isn't just about personal satisfaction. Madison added, her voice gentler than Tyler's, but no less firm. It's about contributing to society, building something, leaving a mark. What mark are you leaving from a studio apartment? I thought about the thousands of jobs my company created, the innovation we'd brought to digital publishing, the scholarships we'd funded, the technology we'd democratized. My mark was everywhere, just invisible to them. Not everyone measures impact by square footage, I said. Then how do you measure it? Ashley challenged. Publications, income, social influence. Give us something, Celia. Show us one metric by which you're succeeding. The room waited. Even Grandmother Betty looked expectant now. They wanted proof of value, evidence of worth, something tangible they could point to and say, see, she's not a failure after all. My phone buzzed again. The Forbes editor persistent as ever. The cover shoot they wanted would make everything public. My face on newsstands, my story in print, my success undeniable. But not yet. Not like this. I measure it by integrity, I said finally, by staying true to my values even when it costs me, by choosing purpose over profit, by refusing to let money define my worth or my relationships. That's beautiful philosophy, Uncle Frank said dryly. But philosophy doesn't pay rent or buy food or build a future. At some point, idealism has to meet reality. And the reality, Robert added heavily, is that you're 32 living in substandard housing with no clear path forward. Your idealism is starting to look like delusion. The assessment stung because I could see it from their perspective. Every choice I'd made to hide my success looked like failure from the outside. Every decision to live simply appeared as inability to live well. The fiction I'd created had become their truth, and now that truth was suffocating me. We should show her the Pinterest board, Jennifer said suddenly. Tyler and I created it for the guest suite, how we could set it up for you. It's really lovely, Celia. Soft colors, lots of light, actual space to breathe. They pulled it up on someone's phone, passing it around like evidence in a trial. The theoretical space they'd created for theoretical me, the failed sister who needed saving. It was sweet and horrible, and so far from my reality, I wanted to laugh or cry or both. That's thoughtful, I managed. It's more than thoughtful, Eleanor said firmly. It's necessary. I won't sleep properly until I know you're living somewhere safe and decent. This studio situation has gone on long enough. The family mobilized with renewed purpose. Madison started searching for available units in appropriate neighborhoods. Ashley researched moving companies with good reviews. Uncle Frank calculated how much I could save monthly in a cheaper area to put toward a car. The theoretical renovation of my life continued at breakneck pace. My phone screen lit up one more time. This notification made my breath catch. It wasn't Forbes or Tokyo or architectural photos. It was my building's concierge, a simple message. Miss Celia, your vehicle has been delivered as requested. Shall we bring it to your private garage? I stared at the words, reality and fiction colliding in real time. Somewhere outside, a Rolls-Royce worth more than most houses sat waiting. Inside, my family planned my move to a guest bedroom out of charity. The distance between these two realities had never felt wider or more impossible to bridge. But the bridge was coming whether I wanted it or not. The truth had its own momentum now rolling toward revelation, like a luxury car toward a modest family home. Celia. Ashley's voice broke through my thoughts. You okay? You look pale. Is this too overwhelming? I know we're throwing a lot at you, but it comes from love. Love. Yes, it did. Misguided assumption. Filled, controlling love. But love nonetheless. And soon I'd have to test whether that love could survive the truth about who I really was and what I'd really built. I'm fine, I said, though fine was the last thing I felt. Just taking it all in. Good, Tyler said with satisfaction. Maybe you're finally ready to stop playing pretend and start living like an adult. If he only knew who was playing pretend. But that revelation was moments away now, waiting outside in the form of a silver spirit, waiting to shatter every assumption they'd built about their failing sister. The living situation assault continued, but I could feel the countdown ticking. Truth approaching on silent tires, ready or not. The energy in the room had shifted from concerned intervention to frantic mobilization. What had started as after-dinner conversation had transformed into a full-scale family emergency response. Robert stood up from his recliner with the decisive movement of a man about to take charge of a crisis. Enough talking, he announced, pulling out his phone. Eleanor, get me the checkbook from my office. I'm transferring $5,000 to Celia's account right now. No arguments, no negotiations. This ends tonight. Dad, that's not necessary. I started, but he held up his hand in the gesture I remembered from childhood, the one that meant discussion was over. Not necessary. My daughter is one step away from homelessness, taking buses through dangerous neighborhoods, living in conditions I wouldn't accept for a college student. If I can't help my own child, what kind of father am I? He was already logging into his banking app, his reading glasses perched on his nose as he squinted at the screen. Eleanor hurried from the room, her footsteps quick and purposeful. The family watched in approving silence, apparently viewing this as the breakthrough moment in their intervention. Tyler had shifted into full producer mode, his phone held up to capture the moment. This is actually perfect, he said, adjusting the angle. I've been documenting tonight for my LinkedIn series on family support systems, how successful families lift each other up. This'll be the climax post. You're filming this? I asked, incredulous. Of course it's inspiring content. Successful siblings rally around struggling family member. Dad steps up with financial support. Everyone comes together. My followers eat this stuff up. He was already adding filters and captions, his fingers flying across the screen. Jennifer peered over his shoulder, offering suggestions. Make sure you get the emotion on Mom's face when she comes back with the checkbook, and maybe do a slow zoom on Celia when she realizes she's finally getting help. Brilliant, Tyler agreed, adjusting his position for a better angle. This could go viral. Hashtag family first, hashtag no one left behind, hashtag success is meant to be shared. Ashley had opened her laptop and was typing furiously. I'm creating a comprehensive life plan spreadsheet, she announced. Financial goals, health objectives, career milestones. Celia, I'll need your current baseline metrics so we can track improvement. What's your current net worth? Approximate is fine if you don't know exactly. I almost choked on the sip of water I'd just taken. My current net worth. Which portion did she want to know about? The liquid assets, the company valuation, the real estate portfolio I'd quietly accumulated, the sum total that my financial advisors had last calculated at just over 200 millions. I don't really track it that way, I said carefully. Of course you don't, she replied, not looking up from her typing. That's part of the problem. You can't improve what you don't measure. Don't worry, we'll start from zero and build up. Rock bottom is just a foundation to build on. Madison had commandeered the TV screen again, now showing a split display of apartment listings and car dealerships. I'm coordinating with Uncle Frank, she explained. If we find you an apartment near one of his dealerships, he can drive you to work until you get your license renewed and buy a car. It's all about synergy. My license isn't expired, I said. I just choose not to drive. Right, Tyler said, zooming in for a reaction shot. Choosing not to drive. Like choosing to be poor. Some choices need to be unmade, sis. Eleanor returned with the checkbook and a small wooden box I recognized from childhood. She set the box on the coffee table with reverence, opening it to reveal neat bundles of cash. This is our emergency fund, she said, her voice thick with emotion. $3,000. We've been saving it for real emergencies, and I can't think of anything more urgent than our daughter's well-being. Mom, no, I protested, genuinely distressed now. That's your security. I can't take that. You can, and you will, Robert said firmly, finishing whatever he was doing on his phone. The transfer is complete. $5,000 from checking, $3,000 cash, $8,000 total. That's first month, last month security deposit and moving expenses. No more excuses. The cash sat there between us, neat green stacks representing my parents' peace of mind, their buffer against disaster. Money they'd saved dollar by dollar while I had millions sitting idle in various accounts. The irony was physically painful. Dorothy had been making calls, and now she covered the phone with her hand. My moving guy says he can do a studio pack and move for $800 this weekend if needed. Should I book it? Book it, Ashley said decisively. The sooner we get her out of that situation, the better. Every day in poverty mindset is another day lost. Uncle Frank ended his own call with a satisfied nod. Done. The silver Corolla is officially on hold. Gary will have it detailed and ready for test drive tomorrow. Employee discount plus family deal brings it to $13,000 flat. With the money your parents just gave you, you could put down 30% and have payments under $200. This is happening so fast, I said, feeling genuinely overwhelmed now. The theoretical intervention had become concrete action so quickly I couldn't process it. Fast is good, Madison countered. Momentum matters. Strike while the iron is hot and the family is united. She'd already pulled up lease applications on her tablet. I need your social security number for the credit check. Don't worry if your score isn't great. I have relationships with landlords who understand circumstances. Jennifer had started a group chat adding everyone's numbers with efficiency. I'm calling it Operation Celia's Comeback, she announced. We can coordinate logistics, share updates, keep everyone motivated. Accountability is key to transformation. My phone was buzzing nonstop, now added to this group chat while simultaneously fielding messages from my actual life. The parallel realities were creating a kind of vertigo, making the room spin slightly. Ashley noticed my expression and immediately switched to doctor mode. Are you feeling faint? When did you last eat a proper meal? Malnutrition is common in financial distress situations. Your blood sugar is probably crashing from the stress. I'm fine. I managed, though fine was becoming an increasingly inaccurate descriptor. You're not fine, Tyler said, still filming. But you will be. This is your rock bottom moment, Celia. The moment everything changes. Years from now, you'll look back on this as the night your family saved your life. Eleanor was crying openly now, clutching the empty emergency fund box. I just want my baby to be okay, she sobbed. We've been so worried. Staying up at night, wondering if you're safe, if you're eating, if you're warm enough in that tiny apartment. Mom, please don't cry. I begged, my own eyes stinging now. This had spiraled so far beyond what I'd expected. Their love, however misguided, was real and overwhelming. "Let her cry," Ashley said clinically. "Emotional release is healthy. We've all been carrying the weight of Celia's situation. Now that we're taking action, the feelings can flow." Grandmother Betty, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke up. "This feels wrong," she said softly. "All this pressure, all these plans. What if Celia doesn't want to be saved?" "Of course she wants to be saved," Tyler responded, panning the camera across the room. "Look at her life. Who would choose that existence if they had options? We're giving her options." Madison's phone chimed with an alert. Perfect A1 bedroom just came on the market in Riverside. 1,400 square feet, parking included, in-unit laundry. "I can get us a viewing tomorrow morning. The landlord owes me a favor, so approval is basically guaranteed." And Patricia texted back. Ashley added, looking at her phone. "The life coach can see you Monday at 2. I already Venmo'd her the deposit. Non-refundable, so don't even think about backing out." Uncle Frank was drawing on another napkin this time, what looked like a timeline. "Here's how I see it. Tomorrow, test drive the car. Sign the papers if it feels right. This weekend, pack and move. Monday, start the receptionist job and see the life coach. By Friday, you're a completely different person." "A better person," Jennifer added helpfully. "The person you were meant to be before you got lost." The plans multiplied exponentially. Dorothy offered her deceased husband's suits, which could be tailored for professional wear. Robert contacted his barber for a success makeover appointment. Madison scheduled 3 apartment viewings for increasing price points. Ashley booked a full medical workup to establish baselines for improvement. Everyone had their phones out, now typing, calling, coordinating. The group chat exploded with messages, links, motivational quotes. My quiet life was being dismantled and rebuilt in real time by committee. "Stop," I said quietly, but no one heard over the din of planning. Tyler was doing a piece to camera now, his selfie mode capturing his earnest expression. "What you're witnessing, LinkedIn family, is the power of not giving up on someone. My sister hit rock bottom, but we're pulling her up. Success is a team sport." "Stop!" I said louder, standing up abruptly. The room fell silent, everyone turning to stare. "I appreciate what you're trying to do." I began, my voice shaking slightly. "I really do. The love behind it is clear. But this has to stop." "The resistance is normal," Ashley said smoothly, clearly prepared for this. "Change is scary. Breaking patterns is uncomfortable. But pushing through that discomfort is how growth happens." "I'm not resisting growth," I said. "I'm resisting the assumption that my life needs this kind of intervention." "Celia," Robert said, his voice heavy with paternal authority, "you're 32 years old, taking public transportation, living in a studio apartment with no stable income. If that doesn't need intervention, what does—" My phone chose that moment to ring the caller ID showing a Japanese number. The Tokyo deal calling at the worst possible moment. I declined it, but Tyler had seen the international format. "Who's calling you from overseas?" he asked suspiciously. "Are you in some kind of trouble? Is that what this is about? Do you owe money to someone?" "I don't owe money to anyone," I said truthfully. "Then why won't you accept help?" Madison demanded. "We're offering everything: money, housing, transportation, job support. What possible reason could you have for refusing?" The truth pressed against my teeth, demanding release. They wanted reasons. I had hundreds, but none that wouldn't shatter this entire dynamic, transform love into calculation, replace concern with requests. Because I said slowly, accepting help means accepting your version of success, and maybe that's not the only version that exists. "Oh my God," Tyler groaned, lowering his phone. "She's really going to stand there in her thrift store clothes with her bus pass in her pocket and lecture us about success. This is delusional." Eleanor clutched Robert's arm. "Maybe we should call someone, a professional. This sounds like depression talking." "I'm not depressed," I insisted. "I'm just different." "Why is that so hard to accept?" "Because different, in your case, means failing." Ashley exploded, surprising everyone with her vehemence. Do you know how it feels to work a 16-hour shift, saving lives, then hear Mom crying about whether you're eating, to achieve everything I've achieved, and still have family gatherings dominated by worry about you? I never asked you to worry, I said softly. We worry because we love you, Robert said, and because you're clearly not capable of taking care of yourself. The evidence is overwhelming. Uncle Frank stood up, his businessman instincts taking over. Here's what's going to happen. Celia, you're going to take this help. You're going to take the job, get the car, move to a decent place. You're going to do it because your family needs you to. Our peace of mind matters too. Emotional blackmail, I asked. Reality check, he countered. Your choices affect everyone. Your failure reflects on all of us. Like it or not, family is connected. Your rock bottom drags everyone down. The group chat was pinging constantly now, plans, solidifying assignments being distributed. My life was being reorganized by committee, and they were doing it with love, which made it so much harder to stop. What if I told you, I said slowly, that everything you think you know about my situation is wrong? Then I'd say, prove it. Tyler challenged, his camera ready. Show us the secret success you're hiding. Show us the great life you've built. Because from where we're sitting, all we see is a woman too proud to admit she needs help. The moment stretched taut between us. Outside, I knew the Rolls-Royce waited patient and gleaming. In my pocket, my phone held evidence of a life they couldn't imagine. The truth was so close, pressing against the fiction with increasing pressure. But not yet. Not like this. Not in anger or frustration or challenge. When the truth came, it had to come with love, or it would destroy everything I'd tried to protect. I can't prove it, I said finally. Not the way you want. All I can ask is that you trust me. Trust that I know what I'm doing, even if you don't understand it. Trust, Madison laughed bitterly. We trusted you to make something of yourself. Look how that turned out. Eleanor stepped forward, the cash from the emergency fund clutched in her hands. Please, Celia, just take the money. Even if you don't use it, just take it so I can sleep tonight knowing you have options. Looking at my mother's tear-stained face, my father's worried eyes, my siblings' frustrated concern, I felt something inside me crack. The weight of their love, misguided as it was breaking through my defenses. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll take it. The room erupted in celebration. Tyler got his viral moment as Eleanor pressed the cash into my hands. Ashley marked something on her spreadsheet with satisfaction. Madison immediately started sending apartment listings to the group chat. Uncle Frank confirmed the car viewing for 9 a.m. sharp. This is just the beginning, Robert said, pulling me into a hug that smelled of aftershave and disappointment. We're going to get you back on track, sweetheart. You'll see. This time next year, you'll thank us. I held the cash, feeling its weight. $3,000 my parents couldn't afford to give, representing safety they were sacrificing for their failing daughter. The irony was a physical pain in my chest. Now, Tyler said, reviewing his footage with satisfaction. Let's get you to that bus stop. Can't have you standing there alone at night. The whole family will walk you. And that's how I found myself being herded toward the door, surrounded by family members ready to escort me to public transportation. The final act of love in their intervention, making sure their charity case made it safely to the bus. If they only knew what waited in the driveway. But they were about to find out, ready or not. The truth had arrived, and secrets like luxury cars don't stay hidden forever. The weight of their collective relief was almost harder to bear than their concern had been. As I stood there, clutching the emergency fund cash, watching their faces transform from worry to satisfaction, I felt like I was drowning in their good intentions. You know what? Eleanor said, wiping her eyes with a tissue Jennifer had produced. This calls for a toast. We need to celebrate Celia's new beginning. Excellent idea, Robert agreed, already moving toward the liquor cabinet. I've been saving a bottle of champagne for a special occasion. Can't think of anything more special than our daughter finally accepting help. Tyler was reviewing his footage, making quick edits on his phone. "This is gold," he murmured. "The emotional arc is perfect. Denial, intervention, breakthrough, acceptance. My followers are going to love this journey." "Make sure you blur the amount of cash," Ashley advised. "We don't want to seem like we're bragging about helping. It should be about the gesture, not the number." I sank back onto the couch, the bills feeling heavy in my hands. Each one represented hours of my parents' work, small sacrifices accumulated over time. The $8,000 they'd scraped together wouldn't even cover the sales tax on the car waiting outside. Madison sat beside me, her hand on my shoulder in what she probably thought was comforting solidarity. "This is the hardest part," she said softly, "admitting you need help. But you've done it, and now everything gets easier. Trust me, I've seen it with dozens of clients who are underwater. The moment they stop pretending and accept reality is when their lives turn around." "Speaking of which," Uncle Frank interjected, still business-focused, "we should talk about financial literacy. Celia, when you start the receptionist job, I want you to meet with my financial planner. First consultation is free for employees. He'll teach you about budgeting, saving, maybe even some basic investing once you're stable." "Investing," Jennifer laughed gently. "Let's master having a checking account that isn't overdrawn first. Baby steps." The champagne cork popped the sound, making me flinch. Robert poured generous glasses for everyone, his movements careful and ceremonial. Even Grandmother Betty accepted a small glass, though she still watched me with those knowing eyes. "A toast," Robert announced, raising his glass. "To Celia for having the courage to accept help, to family for never giving up on each other, and to new beginnings may they lead to the success we all know you're capable of." To Celia, the room chorused, glasses clinking. I raised my water glass, unable to trust my voice. The champagne bubbles rose and burst, tiny celebrations of my supposed breakthrough. Tyler filmed the toast from multiple angles, directing people to raise their glasses again for a better shot. "Now," Ashley said, pulling up her calendar on her phone, "let's synchronize schedules. I can drive you to the life coach appointment Monday since you'll still be carless. Madison, when are the apartment viewings?" "First one is at 10 tomorrow," Madison confirmed. "Then noon and 2. Different neighborhoods, different price points. We'll find something that works with your budget." "What is your budget, by the way?" Dorothy asked. "Now that you have the $8,000 for move-in costs, how much can you afford monthly?" They all turned to look at me expectantly. I thought about my actual housing budget, which was essentially unlimited. The penthouse had cost more than most people's lifetime earnings, and that was before the renovation. "I'll have to review my finances," I said vaguely. "Of course you will," Tyler said with exaggerated patience. "That's what people with financial problems always say. Here's a radical idea, actually review them. Tonight. Pull up your bank statements, face the truth, make a real budget." "I'll help," Jennifer offered. "I'm excellent with Excel. We can create a whole tracking system for you." Eleanor had moved to sit on my other side, sandwiching me between maternal concern and cousin efficiency. "Sweetheart, I want you to know how proud I am of you for accepting help. It takes real strength to admit when you're struggling. Stronger than pretending everything's fine while your life falls apart." Robert added, refilling glasses already. The champagne was loosening tongues and intensifying emotions. Uncle Frank had pulled out his phone again, texting rapidly. "I'm letting Gary know to have the full presentation ready tomorrow. Oil change history, maintenance records, Carfax report. You'll see this Corolla is a solid investment in your future." "Investment might be a strong word for a used Corolla," Tyler commented. "But compared to the bus, it's a Mercedes." "Don't car shame," Ashley scolded. "A reliable vehicle is a victory at this stage. We need to celebrate every win, no matter how small." The group chat was pinging constantly as everyone added their thoughts, suggestions, and assignments. I watched my phone screen light up with notification after notification, each one another bar in the cage they were building with love. Dorothy leaned forward conspiratorially. "You know, once you're settled in a proper place with a car, we should think about your social life. My book club has several lovely single men. Accountants, teachers, stable careers. Nothing flashy, but solid prospects for someone in your situation. Let's get her life together before we inflict her on innocent men," Tyler suggested, though his tone had softened with the champagne and the perceived victory. "Dating can wait," agreed Ashley. "First priorities, housing, transportation, income, stability. Then we can work on relationships, social connections, long-term planning." They were mapping out my life in stages, each phase building on the last, all leading toward their definition of success. The irony that I was already living beyond their wildest dreams wasn't lost on me, but the cash in my hands reminded me why I'd chosen this path. "I should probably head out soon," I said quietly. "Don't want to miss the last bus." "The last bus," Madison repeated, shaking her head. "God, I can't wait until that phrase is extinct from your vocabulary. This time tomorrow you'll be signing papers for a car. Can you imagine your own steering wheel, your own keys, freedom to go anywhere, anytime?" "We'll all walk you to the bus stop," Eleanor announced. "I want to see where you've been waiting all these years. Need to picture it so I can properly appreciate when it's behind you." "That's really not necessary," I protested, but the family was already mobilizing. "Of course it's necessary," Robert said firmly. "What kind of family would we be sending you off alone after everything we've discussed tonight? Besides, I want to see these dangerous bus stops Tyler's been talking about." Tyler was already at the door holding people's coats. "This is perfect, actually. Final scene of tonight's LinkedIn story. Family united, walking toward the future together. The bus stop becomes a symbol of the past she's leaving behind. Everything's content with you," Ashley muttered, but she was smiling. The intervention had gone according to plan, their wayward sister finally accepting help. The relief in the room was palpable. As we prepared to leave, everyone gathering coats and bags, I caught sight of my reflection in the hallway mirror. Same simple clothes, same unassuming appearance, but now I carried their money and their dreams for my transformation. The weight of both was staggering. "Oh, Celia," Jennifer said suddenly, "should we order you an Uber instead? I mean, if you're carrying all that cash, public transportation might not be safe." "She's been taking the bus for years," Tyler pointed out. "One more night won't kill her. Besides, this is the last time. Tomorrow begins the new chapter." "The last time?" Eleanor repeated, tears threatening again. "My baby's last bus ride as a struggling woman. Next time we see you, you'll be driving your own car to your new apartment from your stable job." The fiction was so complete now, so detailed and developed, that reality felt like the dream. But outside, the Rolls-Royce waited with patient elegance, about to shatter every carefully constructed assumption. "Ready?" Robert asked, holding the door open. "Let's go see this bus stop that's been such a big part of your life. Maybe we should take a photo document the moment everything changed." "Everything changes," I agreed softly, knowing how true that was about to become. The family filed out, chattering excitedly about tomorrow's plans. I followed their cash in one pocket, my phone in the other, two different worlds, about to collide in the most spectacular way. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and impending revelation. As we walked down the driveway, Tyler narrating for his camera, Madison pointing out nice cars I'd soon be able to afford, Ashley listing the health benefits of driving over public transit, I saw it. The Rolls-Royce sat under the streetlight like a silver secret waiting to be discovered. The family hadn't noticed yet, too busy planning my salvation to see the truth parked right in front of them. "Which way to the bus stop?" Uncle Frank asked, pausing at the end of the driveway. But before I could answer, Dorothy's voice cut through the chatter. "Whose car is that? It's blocking the whole street." One by one, they turned to look. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the soft ping of my phone. Another notification, another reminder of the life they were about to discover. The intervention was over. The revelation was about to begin. The family stood frozen at the end of the driveway, their chatter dying mid-sentence as they took in the sight before them. The Rolls-Royce Spirit sat beneath the streetlight like something from another world, its silver surface gleaming with an almost ethereal quality. The iconic Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament caught the light, proud and unmistakable. Holy! Tyler's voice trailed off his phone, still held up but recording forgotten. That's a Rolls-Royce, an actual legitimate Rolls-Royce. Uncle Frank, who knew cars better than anyone, stepped forward with the reverence of someone approaching a religious artifact. That's not just any Rolls, that's the new Spirit model. They start at $400,000. This one, with what I can see of the customization, probably closer to $500,000. Who parks a $500,000 car on our street? Madison whispered, as if speaking too loudly might somehow damage it. Jennifer clutched Tyler's arm. Maybe they're lost. Rich people don't come to this neighborhood. Should we call the police? What if it's stolen? Stolen? Robert scoffed, though he too seemed mesmerized. Nobody steals a car like that and parks it in suburbia. They're probably visiting someone. But who? Eleanor looked around at the familiar houses of their middle-class neighborhood. The Johnsons, the Patels. Nobody here has friends with Rolls-Royces. Ashley had her phone out already Googling. License plate frame says Platinum Motors. That's the ultra-luxury dealership downtown. They don't even let you in without proving you have 7 figures in liquid assets. The family circled the car like anthropologists discovering an artifact from an advanced civilization. Their planned march to the bus stop forgotten they were completely absorbed by this unexpected arrival of extreme wealth in their ordinary world. "Don't touch it," Dorothy warned as Tyler reached toward the hood. "These things probably have alarms that cost more than our cars." "Look at the interior," Madison breathed, pressing her face close to the window. Is that hand-stitched leather and real wood? My God, the dashboard looks like it belongs in a yacht." I stood back watching them orbit around my car with a mixture of amusement and dread. The valet driver from the dealership had positioned it perfectly, right where it couldn't be ignored. My phone buzzed with his confirmation text that he'd left the keys with the concierge, as instructed, though of course there was no concierge on this street. "We should go," I suggested quietly. "The bus—" But no one was listening. Uncle Frank was calculating the car's specifications out loud. Tyler was filming every angle for his LinkedIn. Ashley was reading Wikipedia articles about Rolls-Royce craftsmanship. The intervention had been completely derailed by this symbol of the very success they'd been trying to help me achieve. "Can you imagine," Eleanor said softly, "having so much money that you could buy something like this? What must that feel like?" "Wasteful," Robert declared, though his eyes betrayed fascination. "Nobody needs a car that costs as much as a house. It's obscene." "It's beautiful," Grandmother Betty said simply. She'd walked closer than the others, studying the car with those sharp eyes. "Look at the paint. It's like looking into water." I reached into my pocket, my fingers finding the key fob among the emergency fund cash. One click and this charade would end. One press of a button and everything would change. My thumb found the unlock button, hesitating. "We should really get to the bus stop." I tried again. "In a minute," Tyler said dismissively. "How often do you get to see something like this up close? My followers are going crazy. The contrast is perfect, actually. Here we are trying to help you buy a used Corolla, and the universe drops a Rolls-Royce in our path. It's like cosmic mockery." "Or cosmic inspiration," Madison countered. "See, Celia, this is what's possible. Sure, you'll start with a Corolla, but who knows, work hard. Invest smart. Maybe someday you could lease something nice. Not this nice, obviously, but nice." Jennifer laughed. "Right, from bus pass to Rolls-Royce. That's quite the career trajectory you're imagining. Everything's possible." Ashley said, though she sounded doubtful. "I mean, statistically speaking, almost no one achieves this level of wealth. But ordinary success, that's attainable." They continued their inspection, comparing the car to their own vehicles, marveling at every detail. The Spirit of Ecstasy seemed to watch them with metallic patience, waiting for the truth to dawn. "The owner must be nearby," Robert reasoned, looking around. "You don't leave something like this unattended. They're probably in one of these houses." Maybe they're visiting the new family that moved in last month, Dorothy suggested. We don't really know them yet. Could be they have wealthy friends. Or relatives, Eleanor added. Wouldn't that be something, having a relative who could afford this? Tyler had moved to the back of the car reading the license plate. Custom plates, he announced. Celia 1. That's weird. Who names their Rolls-Royce Celia? The family froze. Every head turned to look at the plates, then at me, then back at the plates. The silence stretched so long I could hear my own heartbeat. That's, Madison started, then stopped. Coincidence, Ashley said firmly. Has to be. Celia is a common enough name. Is it, though? Tyler asked his camera, now focused on me. Is it common enough that someone would randomly park a Rolls-Royce with that exact name outside our parents' house during our family dinner? I pulled the key fob from my pocket, holding it up. The Rolls-Royce logo caught the light, unmistakable and undeniable. Actually, I said quietly, it's mine. The silence that followed was complete. Even the neighborhood seemed to hold its breath. Then, because seeing was believing, I pressed the unlock button. The car responded instantly, lights, flashing mirrors, unfolding with elegant precision. The distinctive sound of Rolls-Royce locks disengaging echoed in the night. No, Tyler said flatly. No way, this is a prank. You borrowed someone's car to make a point. Very funny, Celia. You got us. It's not a prank, I said, walking toward the driver's door. This is my car. I bought it 6 months ago, though I rarely drive it. Bought it, Robert's voice cracked. With what money? You just accepted $8,000 because you're broke? I opened the driver's door, the interior lights revealing the customized cabin. The dashboard did indeed look like it belonged in a yacht because I'd specified nautical themes to remind me of the startup's origin during a sailing trip. This is impossible, Madison stated. I know what these cost. Even with perfect credit and a massive down payment, the monthly payments would be more than most people's salaries. You take the bus. I choose to take the bus, I corrected. There's a difference. Ashley approached slowly, her medical training apparent in how she was assessing me. Celia, are you feeling all right? This kind of delusion could indicate a serious psychological break. Did you hit your head recently? I'm not delusional, I assured her. I'm also not broke, struggling, or in need of intervention. I've been trying to tell you all night. Uncle Frank had circled to examine the registration sticker on the windshield. Current registration, he reported, his voice strange. Registered to Celia M. Davidson. That's you. This is actually your car. But how? Eleanor whispered. We've been so worried. You live in a studio, you don't have a car, you freelance. I do freelance, I said. I freelance as CEO of my own company. The studio apartment is in a building I own. I take public transportation because I believe in it, not because I can't afford alternatives. Tyler lowered his phone for the first time all evening. You're telling us you've been secretly rich this whole time, while we sat there planning your salvation, while Mom cried about you being hungry. I never said I was struggling, I pointed out. You all assumed. Every time I tried to correct those assumptions, you interpreted it as denial or delusion. Because normal people who own Rolls-Royces don't take buses, Ashley exploded. They don't wear simple clothes or live in studios or accept emergency funds from their parents. I looked down at the cash still in my hand. My parents' financial security crumpled between my fingers. You're right. I shouldn't have taken this. I'm sorry. Sorry. Robert stepped forward, his face a mixture of confusion and growing anger. You're sorry we've been sick with worry. Your mother hasn't slept properly in months. I offered to co-sign loans thinking you were desperate. And you're sorry. This doesn't make sense, Madison said, shaking her head. Rich people don't hide it. They flaunt it. They network with it. They leverage it. Why would you pretend to be poor? I wasn't pretending to be poor, I said carefully. I was just living simply. There's a difference between not displaying wealth and pretending not to have it. Semantics, Tyler spat. You let us believe you were a failure. Do you have any idea how that felt? Being embarrassed by my own sister, apologizing for you to friends, and the whole time you could buy and sell us all. Jennifer looked genuinely hurt. We offered you our guest room. We thought we were helping family in need. Was that amusing to you, watching us scramble to save you? It wasn't amusing, I said, feeling the weight of their pain. It was heartbreaking. But every time I thought about revealing the truth, I imagined how it would change everything. And I was right. Wasn't I? Look how you're all looking at me now. Everything's different. Of course everything's different, Ashley shouted. You're apparently a millionaire who's been cosplaying poverty while we worried ourselves sick. Not cosplaying, Grandmother Betty said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. Living according to different values, I suspected something you know. The way you never seemed worried even when everyone else was worried for you. The peace in your eyes even during the intervention. You weren't struggling. You were choosing. Choosing to hurt us. Eleanor said, tears streaming now. Choosing to let us suffer, thinking our daughter was failing. How could you? I didn't want you to suffer, I said. I wanted to be loved for who I am, not what I have. I wanted family relationships that weren't transactional. Transactional. Robert's voice rose. You think so little of us that you assumed we'd only love you for money. Look at tonight, I said, gesturing to the car. Look how everything changed the moment you saw wealth. The entire dynamic shifted. This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. By lying to us, Tyler accused. By living simply, I countered. By choosing buses over private cars. By valuing different things than you do. That's not lying. Then what do you call accepting money from parents who can't afford it while sitting on millions? Madison demanded. I looked at the cash again, then walked over to hand it back to Eleanor. I call it a mistake. I'm sorry. I got caught up in the moment in your love, however misguided. I shouldn't have taken it. She wouldn't take it back, stepping away from me like I was a stranger, which I supposed I now was. So what's the truth? Uncle Frank asked, his business mind already calculating. What's the real story? How does someone go from taking buses to buying Rolls Royces? It's a long story, I said. We have time, Robert said coldly. Apparently, we have nothing but time to learn who our daughter really is. The family stood in a loose circle around the car around me, waiting for explanations that would make sense of this revelation. The intervention was over, but something else was just beginning. The question was whether our family could survive the truth after living so long with assumptions. My phone buzzed again. The Forbes editor persistent as ever. The public revelation that would make this private one seem small in comparison. But first, I had to face the people who'd loved me when they thought I had nothing and figure out if they could love me now that they knew I had everything. All right, I said, leaning against my car, the metal cool against my back. Let me tell you what really happened. But I warn you, it's not the story you're expecting. Nothing about tonight is what we expected, Tyler said bitterly. So please enlighten us. Tell us how our failure of a sister became this. And so, under the streetlight beside the Rolls Royce that had shattered our family's assumptions, I prepared to tell the truth at last. The family erupted like a disturbed hive, voices overlapping in a chaos of disbelief and accusations. Madison was the first to form a coherent protest, her real estate agent instincts kicking in. This has to be a rental, she declared with forced confidence. High-end rental companies let you use them for special events. That's what this is. Celia rented a Rolls Royce to make some kind of point about our intervention. Exactly. Tyler seized on the explanation. It's all about appearances, right? You couldn't stand us trying to help, so you went and rented the most expensive car you could find. What did that cost you? $1,000 a day. $2,000 money you definitely don't have thrown away on pride. Uncle Frank was already circling the car again, his experienced eye examining details. No rental stickers, he muttered. No fleet numbers. This isn't how rental companies operate. He peered closer at the door jamb. Custom paint code, bespoke interior specification number. Rental companies don't do full custom builds. Then she borrowed it, Ashley said firmly, her need for rational explanation overriding evidence. Celia, whose car is this really a boyfriend we don't know about? Someone you're house-sitting for? There's no shame in admitting it. Jennifer nodded eagerly. That makes so much more sense. You're watching someone's house, they let you use their car for the evening. It's actually sweet that you wanted to impress us. Or illegal. Tyler countered his phone out again. What if she stole it? What if this is why she's been so secretive? Oh my God, Celia, are you in trouble with the law? I didn't steal my own car, I said evenly, though my patience was wearing thin. Stop saying that, Madison snapped. Stop pretending this is yours. Do you have any idea what insurance alone costs on a vehicle like this? More than most people's rent, monthly. You live in a studio. I own the building the studio is in. I repeated, though I knew they weren't ready to hear it. Dorothy had been quiet, but now she spoke with ant-like authority. This is clearly some kind of breakdown. The pressure of poverty has made her delusional. We need to get her help. I'm not delusional, I insisted, and I can prove this is my car. Then prove it, Tyler challenged. Show us the registration, insurance. Something real, not just clicking a key fob anyone could have copied. I opened the driver's door wider and reached into the glove compartment. The family pressed closer, eager to expose what they were certain was my elaborate deception. I pulled out the leather folder containing the documents custom embossed with my initials. Registration, I said, handing it to Robert. Insurance, passing that to Ashley. And the original purchase agreement, giving that to Uncle Frank. The night seemed to hold its breath as they read. I watched their faces change denial, giving way to confusion to shock. Robert's hands trembled slightly as he read my name on the registration, the address listed as one they didn't recognize in the most exclusive part of the city. This says you paid. Uncle Frank's voice failed him. He cleared his throat and tried again. This says you paid in full, cash transaction, no financing. That's impossible, Madison whispered. But she was looking at the insurance documents Ashley held. The insurance policy address. That's the Meridian Tower. Those penthouses start at $10 million. $15 million for mine, I corrected, though that was before the renovation. Tyler snatched the registration from Robert, studying it like it might reveal forgery. This has to be fake. Has to be. Nobody buys a $500,000 car with cash while their family thinks they're taking the bus. Look at the date, Eleanor said softly, pointing to the purchase agreement. 6 months ago, when we were organizing a grocery fund for you because we thought you couldn't afford food. The executive parking permit caught Jennifer's eye. Tech Hub Plaza. That's where all the major startups are. Why do you have executive parking there? Because my company's headquarters are on the top 3 floors, I said. Your company? Ashley's voice was strangled. What company? You said you freelance? I do freelance, as CEO of my own company. We revolutionize digital publishing through AI integration. You might have heard of us. Narrative networks. The silence was deafening. Even the night sounds seemed to pause. Then Ashley's medical bag hit the ground with a thud. Narrative networks, she whispered. The narrative networks. The company that just partnered with Amazon. That was valued at $180 million at last count. I supplied, though the acquisition offers have been higher. No, Tyler said flatly. No, my sister is not secretly the CEO of Narrative Networks. That company was founded by some tech genius who started it in a studio apartment 5 years ago. I finished. Which is why I stayed in the studio even after success. It reminds me where I came from. Uncle Frank was staring at the purchase agreement like it was written in an alien language. The payment authorization code, that's from a private wealth management account, the kind that requires minimum deposits of $10 million. Madison finished her real estate knowledge of high net worth clients, filling in the blanks. Oh my God, you're actually rich, like properly rich. But you took the bus, Jennifer protested weakly. Rich people don't take buses. I take the bus because I believe in public transportation, I explained. Because I care about the environment. Because some of my best business insights came from conversations with regular people on their commutes, not because I couldn't afford alternatives. Eleanor was crying again, but these were different tears. All those times I offered you leftovers thinking you were hungry. I always appreciated the gesture, I said gently. The love behind it was real, even if the premise was wrong. Wrong. Robert's calm had shattered completely. We thought you were failing. I lay awake at night wondering what would happen to you when we died. Your mother made herself sick with worry. I never asked you to worry, I pointed out. I told you repeatedly I was fine. Fine, Tyler exploded. You said you were fine while we planned interventions, while we offered charity, while I told my followers my sister was a failure who needed saving. His phone, the live stream. I noticed the small red light indicating he was still broadcasting. Tyler, are you still filming? He looked down, seemed surprised, then deliberately kept recording. You know what, good. Let them see this. Let them see how my sister played us for fools. I didn't play anyone, I said. I just lived my life without broadcasting my success. There's a difference. There's no difference when family is involved, Ashley shouted. We're supposed to share our lives, our struggles, our successes. That's what family does. David Chen, the financial advisor, finally spoke up. He'd been silent through the entire revelation, but now he cleared his throat. I knew. Everyone turned to stare at him. You knew, Robert demanded. You knew and said nothing. Professional confidentiality, David said calmly. I've seen the public filings, the Forbes list. I assumed Celia had her reasons for privacy. Forbes list. Madison grabbed her phone, typing frantically. Oh my God, you're on the 30 under 30 list. Number 12, there's an article coming out. Tomorrow? I confirmed. Well, today now. It'll be public in a few hours. So everyone will know except us, Eleanor said bitterly. Strangers will read about our daughter's success while we thought she was starving. I tried to tell you tonight, I reminded them. Several times, but you were so convinced I needed saving that you wouldn't listen. Because nothing in your behavior suggested this. Robert gestured wildly at the car. You dressed, simply lived, simply traveled simply. What were we supposed to think? That maybe I was happy, I suggested. That maybe success doesn't always look like luxury cars and giant houses. Except you do have a luxury car, Tyler pointed at the Rolls-Royce, and apparently a $15 million penthouse, so even that was a lie. Grandmother Betty, who had been silent through most of the confrontation, spoke quietly. Was it a lie or was it a test? We all looked at her. What do you mean? Ashley asked. Betty's eyes were on me, knowing and sad. She wanted to see if we'd love her without the money, if we'd value her as a person, not a bank account. And we failed, didn't we? We made her feel like a failure because she didn't display wealth. We valued cars and apartments over character. That's not fair, Madison protested. We were trying to help. Were you, Betty asked, or were you trying to make her fit your definition of success? The question hung in the air like an accusation. I saw them grappling with it, reviewing the evening's intervention through this new lens. The offers of help that were really demands for conformity. The concern that was really judgment. The love that came with conditions. I need to know something, Uncle Frank said suddenly. The receptionist job. Were you really going to take it? Were you going to let me pay you $22 an hour to answer phones while you're worth millions? I was going to donate the salary to your employee hardship fund, I admitted, anonymously. Anonymously, he repeated, like everything else. The loan payments right. That was you. Tyler's head snapped up. What loan payments? Someone paid off my business loan 2 years ago, Frank said slowly. Anonymous cashier's check. Saved my dealership. That was you. I nodded. And my student loans. Tyler said the pieces falling into place. They were suddenly paid off last year. The servicer said it was an administrative correction, but it was you. The hospital wing. Ashley breathed. The anonymous donor who funded the new pediatric ward. They insisted on no recognition, no naming rights. Does it matter? I asked. The help happened. Does it matter who provided it? Yes, they all said in unison. Because we thought you were a failure while you were secretly saving us. Robert said, his voice broken. Do you have any idea how that feels? Like finding out your struggling daughter is actually successful, I suggested. Seems like that should feel good. It doesn't, Eleanor cried. It feels like betrayal, like you didn't trust us, like you thought we were too shallow to handle your success. Look at tonight, I said quietly. Look at how you're all reacting. Can you honestly say my concerns were unfounded? That silenced them, but only momentarily. The questions came in waves. How long had I been successful? Why hide it? What else were they wrong about? The Rolls-Royce sat between us like a silver barrier, proof of the chasm between who they thought I was and who I really was. So what now? Tyler asked finally, his camera still recording. What happens to our family now that we know our biggest failure is actually our biggest success? It was the question I dreaded since the moment I decided to keep my success private. The question that had no easy answer, because money changes everything, especially families. And there was no going back to before. Now, I said slowly, we figure out if we can be a family that exists beyond bank accounts and status symbols. If you can love me for who I am, not what I have. If I can trust you with my success, the way I couldn't trust you with my perceived failure. Trust, Madison laughed bitterly. You want to talk about trust after this? Yes, I said firmly, because trust goes both ways, and tonight showed me exactly why I was right to be cautious. The family stood divided, some still staring at the car, others at me, all grappling with a reality that had shifted too fast to process. The intervention had become a revelation, and none of us were prepared for what came next. In my pocket, my phone buzzed again. The world was waiting to celebrate my success, but first I had to find out if my family could survive it. The questions came rapidly, now my family forming a semicircle around me as I leaned against the Rolls-Royce. Their faces showed a mixture of shock, betrayal, and desperate curiosity. The careful fiction I'd maintained for years was unraveling, and with it, everything they thought they knew about me. Start from the beginning. Robert demanded, his CEO of the family voice strained. How does someone go from college graduate to this without their family knowing? I took a breath, organizing thoughts I'd never planned to share. Remember my senior year of college, when I was always working on that little blog project you all made fun of? The one Tyler said would never make money. Eleanor recalled shooting her son a look. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Everyone was starting blogs then. How was I supposed to know yours would be different? It was different because I wasn't just blogging, I explained. I was building a content algorithm that could predict viral patterns before they happened. What started as a thesis project became a prototype, then a platform, then a company. Ashley pulled out her phone, rapidly searching. Narrative Networks, founded 5 years ago, pioneered predictive content technology. Clients include, her voice faded as she scrolled, Fortune 500 companies, major publishers, tech giants. Celia, this is huge. When did it become real money? Madison asked, her real estate brain calculating. When did you go from struggling startup to buying Rolls-Royces? I was never really struggling, I admitted. The first investor check came 6 months after graduation, $250,000 for 10% equity. I kept living in the studio because I was working 20-hour days. Moving seemed pointless. $250,000, Uncle Frank whistled. And you didn't tell anyone. What would I have said? Hey, everyone, someone gave me money for an idea. You all would have had opinions, advice, concerns. I needed to focus on building, not explaining. Jennifer looked hurt. We would have been supportive. Would you? I challenged gently. Tonight you all assumed I was delusional when I said I was successful. Why would it have been different then? Because we would have seen the proof, Tyler argued, though he looked uncertain. You saw proof tonight and called it a rental, a delusion theft, I pointed out. Success that doesn't match your expectations becomes impossible to believe. David Chen spoke up again. The Series A funding was $2 million, if I recall correctly. That was year 2. I nodded. Then Series B at $15 million, Series C at $50 million. By then, staying quiet had become habit. And honestly, the bus conversations, the simple lifestyle, the anonymity, it kept me grounded, connected to real people with real problems our technology could solve. So every time we offered help, Eleanor's voice was small. You were showing love the only way you knew how. I finished. I understood that. It's why I never corrected you harshly. Your intentions were good, even if your assumptions were wrong. But the worry, Robert said, rubbing his face. Do you know what it's like to think your child is failing, the sleepless nights, the stress on our marriage as we debated how much help to offer without enabling? I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. I never wanted you to suffer. I just wanted to exist in this family as Celia, not as a bank account or a success story. Well, mission accomplished, Tyler said bitterly. We all thought you were Celia the failure. Hope you're happy. Grandmother Betty spoke up. She was trying to protect something precious. Family relationships uncorrupted by money. Can none of you see that? All I see is deception, Ashley countered. Years of deception. Every family gathering where we worried about you, every offer of help you deflected, every simple outfit that made us think you couldn't afford better. It was all a lie. It wasn't a lie, I insisted. I do prefer simple clothes. I do ride the bus by choice. I do live in a studio, even if I own the building. Those things are true. Half-truths, Madison corrected. Lies by omission. You let us believe a false narrative. Like the narrative that success only looks one way, I asked. That wealth must be displayed. That taking the bus means failure. You created that narrative, not me. Uncle Frank had been quiet processing. Now he spoke slowly. The anonymous business grants, the ones that saved 3 dealerships in our network last year. That was you. I nodded. The scholarship fund at Mom and Dad's old high school. Ashley added, piecing things together. The one that suddenly appeared with a $5 million endowment. You. Another nod. The investment in Tyler's company that kept it afloat during COVID, Jennifer said quietly. He said it was a guardian angel investor who wanted no recognition. Tyler's face went through several expressions before settling on stunned recognition. That was you. You saved my company while I was calling you a failure. You're my brother, I said simply. Of course I helped. Without telling me, his voice cracked. Do you know how that feels to be saved by someone you were trying to save, to mock someone who was secretly your benefactor? Would knowing have changed our relationship? I asked. Would you have treated me the same? The question hung heavy because everyone knew the answer. Everything would have changed. Every interaction would have been colored by the knowledge of my wealth. The very dynamic I'd tried to avoid was playing out now in real time. Eleanor was sobbing quietly. All those Thanksgivings where we prayed for your success, not knowing our prayers were already answered. All those birthday wishes for your stability and happiness. I am stable and happy, I said, just not in the way you expected. Happy, Robert challenged. Living a double life, hiding from your family. That's happiness. Happier than I would have been dealing with everyone's expectations and requests once they knew about the money. I said honestly, do you know what happens when people find out you have wealth? Every relationship becomes transactional. Every conversation has an agenda. Every family member has a business idea or an emergency or a special investment opportunity. We're not like that, Madison protested, though she flushed slightly. Aren't you? I asked gently. Madison, you've pitched me 3 business ideas tonight alone thinking I was broke. What would you have pitched if you'd known I had millions? She fell silent, unable to deny it. And Ashley, you were so ready with investment advice and financial planning. How much more intense would that have been if you'd known I actually had money to invest? That's not fair, Ashley said weakly. Tyler's already filmed our entire interaction for content. Imagine the content he could create with a millionaire sister. The LinkedIn posts, the motivational speeches, the networking opportunities. Tyler lowered his phone, finally looking ashamed. I'm not blaming any of you, I continued. It's human nature. Money changes dynamics, especially in families. I watched it happen to friends who came into wealth. Suddenly, everyone needs something, has an emergency, sees an opportunity. The person becomes secondary to the portfolio. So you decided we were all too shallow to handle your success, Robert summarized coldly. I decided I wanted to preserve the relationships we had, I corrected. Flawed as they were, at least they were real, based on who we were as people, not numbers and accounts. But they weren't real, Jennifer protested. They were based on a fundamental misconception about your life. Were they, I challenged, did my bank account change who I am? Did my company's success alter my personality? I'm the same person I was at dinner, just with different assets. The only thing that's changed is your perception. The family exchanged glances, grappling with this logic. Around us, the quiet neighborhood slept on, unaware of the family drama unfolding beneath the streetlights. The Forbes article, Madison said suddenly. When it goes live, everyone will know. Our friends, co-workers, extended family. How are we supposed to explain that we didn't know our own sister was a tech mogul? You don't have to explain anything, I said. It's my story to tell. But it reflects on us, Tyler argued. We look like idiots, or worse, like a family so dysfunctional that members hide massive success. As opposed to a family so judgmental that members feel they need to hide, Grandmother Betty suggested. Mom, whose side are you on? Dorothy demanded. I'm on the side of understanding, Betty replied. Celia made choices to protect herself and in her way to protect all of us. Were they the right choices? Maybe not. But they came from a place of wanting genuine relationships, not transactional ones. Genuine? Ashley laughed bitterly. Nothing about this feels genuine. My phone rang the sound, startling in the tense atmosphere. The caller ID showed the Forbes editor again. This time I answered. Celia finally. The editor's voice was excited. The article's about to go live. We need to confirm the photo selection and the pull quote about staying grounded through public transportation. Can you verify? Now's not a great time, I said, aware of my family listening to every word. It'll just take a second. Also, the fact-checkers had a question about the family dynamics section. You mentioned choosing to keep success private from relatives. Can you expand on that? I looked at my family, their faces a mixture of hurt and curiosity. Actually, I'm in the middle of that revelation right now. Oh, wow, perfect timing. Any chance we could get a family reaction quote? The readers love that personal angle. No, I said firmly. No quotes. Run the article as approved. Fair enough. Oh, and Celia, congratulations again. Your story is inspiring. From studio apartment to CEO, maintaining those values, it's going to resonate with so many people. I hung up, finding my family staring at me with fresh shock. Family dynamics section, Robert repeated. You told Forbes about us. I told them I chose privacy to preserve authentic relationships, I said. No names, no details, just the general concept. So the whole world will know you hid success from your family, but not why, Tyler said. Great. We'll look like monsters who drove you to secrecy. Or I'll look like someone who valued relationships over recognition, I suggested. You can't control how people interpret it, Madison warned. Once it's out there, the narrative takes on a life of its own. I'm familiar with how narratives work, I said dryly. I built a company on understanding them. Eleanor stepped forward, her tear-stained face resolute. I need to know something. If you could do it over, would you tell us, would you trust us with your success? It was the question at the heart of everything. Looking at their faces, seeing the hurt I'd caused by protecting myself, feeling the weight of years of careful distance, I had to be honest. "I don't know," I admitted, "because I saw how you treated perceived failure tonight. The intervention, the assumptions, the inability to accept that someone might choose a different path. If that's how you handle what you see as failure, how would you handle extreme success?" "We'll never know, will we?" Ashley said, "because you never gave us the chance." "I'm giving it to you now," I pointed out. "What you do with it will determine everything going forward." The Rolls-Royce gleamed between us, a silver symbol of everything hidden and now revealed. My family stood at a crossroads processing the transformation of their failing sister into their most successful member. The question was whether our relationships could survive the truth after so many years of careful fiction. "I need time," Robert said finally. "Time to process this, to understand how we got here, to figure out what this means for our family." Others nodded in agreement. The emotional whiplash of the evening from intervention to revelation had left everyone drained. "The article goes live in an hour," I warned. "After that, it's public knowledge." "Then we have an hour to decide who we want to be," Eleanor said quietly. "A family that fractures over success or one that finds a way forward." "I know which one I'm hoping for," Grandmother Betty said, taking my hand. "The same thing I've always hoped for. A family that loves each other for who they are, not what they have." But as we stood there in the late November night, the Rolls-Royce between us like a luxury barrier, I wasn't sure hope was enough to bridge the gap my success had revealed. Money changes everything, and we were about to find out if our family was strong enough to survive it. The initial shock began to give way to something more complex as my family processed the revelation. The anger was still there, but underneath it, shame was beginning to surface. I watched as each of them grappled with their own behavior from the evening now cast in a very different light. Tyler was the first to crumble. He stared at his phone where his live stream had captured everything his followers commenting in real time about the shocking turn of events. His face went through several shades of red before he finally spoke. "I called you a failure," he said, his voice hollow, "to thousands of people. I built content around helping my struggling sister. Do you know how many times I've used you as an example of what not to do?" "I know," I said quietly. "I've seen some of your posts." "You've seen them?" His head snapped up. "You watched me mock you online and said nothing." "What could I have said, 'Actually, I'm secretly rich'? Would that have made things better?" Jennifer reached for Tyler's arm, but he pulled away. "No, don't. I need to own this. I made my sister a punchline for LinkedIn clout while she was paying off my company's debts. How does someone even process that level of irony?" Ashley had sunk onto the curb, her head in her hands. "The life coach," she muttered. "I was so condescending about the life coach, like you needed someone to teach you basic success principles. You could probably buy the entire life coaching industry." "I'm not interested in buying industries," I said. "Just building things that matter." "While we thought you couldn't even build a proper life," Madison added bitterly. She looked at her phone where she'd pulled up more information about my company. "This says, Narrative Networks employs over 300 people. You created 300 jobs while I was lecturing you about real estate as a path to stability." Eleanor and Robert stood close together, but I could see the distance between them. The stress they'd mentioned, the arguments about how to help me, the weight of thinking their daughter was failing all of it based on a fundamental misunderstanding. "We failed you," Eleanor said finally. "Not the other way around. We were so busy trying to fit you into our definition of success that we couldn't see you'd already exceeded it." "You didn't fail me," I protested. "You loved me the best way you knew how." "Did we?" Robert challenged. "Or did we love an idea of you, the struggling daughter who needed our guidance? Because the real you, the successful CEO, we apparently couldn't even recognize her." Uncle Frank had been doing calculations on his phone, his business mind working through implications. "The grants to the dealership network saved 1,200 jobs," he said slowly. Families fed mortgages, paid kids in college, all because of anonymous gifts I now know came from my niece. My niece I tried to hire as a receptionist for $22 an hour. The job offer came from a good place, I said. The job offer came from arrogance, he corrected. The assumption that I knew better, that my path was the right path, that success looked like car dealerships and steady paychecks. I've been in business 40 years, and I couldn't recognize a visionary in my own family. Dorothy wiped tears from her eyes. We sat around that table planning your life like you were a project, making spreadsheets, scheduling appointments, organizing your transformation, the hubris of it all. We meant well, Ashley said weakly. We meant to control, Dorothy countered, to force Celia into a mold that made us comfortable. Simple job, simple car, simple life. Nothing that would challenge our assumptions about how the world works. Grandmother Betty, still holding my hand, squeezed gently. The saddest part is how unsurprised I am. This family has always measured worth by visible markers. Cars, houses, titles. Celia chose invisible success, and we couldn't see it. Because invisible success isn't supposed to exist, Tyler argued. Success is meant to be shared, celebrated, leveraged. What's the point of achieving something if you hide it? The point is the achievement itself, I said. The problems solved, the jobs created, the innovation delivered. Not everyone needs external validation. But we're your family, Jennifer said plaintively. Didn't our validation matter? Your validation tonight was conditional on my getting a car and a better apartment, I pointed out. What kind of validation is that? The group fell silent, processing this truth. Their love had come with requirements, their support with stipulations. They'd been ready to celebrate my transformation into their version of success, not my actual success. Madison suddenly laughed a bitter sound. Do you know what the real irony is? I've spent years chasing commissions, building my real estate empire, thinking I was the successful cousin. Turns out I've been patronizing someone who could buy my entire brokerage without blinking. It's not a competition, I said. Everything's a competition in this family, she replied. Who has the best job, the nicest car, the biggest house? We just never knew you were winning. Maybe that's why I didn't tell you, I suggested. Because I didn't want to win. I wanted to be. Philosophical bullshit. Tyler spat, but there was less heat in it now. You can dress it up however you want, but you still deceived us. I lived authentically according to my values, I corrected. You made assumptions based on yours. Eleanor moved closer, studying my face as if seeing me for the first time. All those family dinners where we worried about you, all those prayers for your success and stability. What did you think during those moments? I thought about how love can become burden, I admitted, how concern can become control, how families can suffocate with kindness what they can't understand. So you suffocated us with lies instead, Robert said. I gave us space, I corrected. Space to be family without the weight of money. Space for you to love me or judge me based on who I am, not what I have. And we judged you, Ashley said quietly. God did we judge you, found you lacking, insufficient, embarrassing even. Tyler flinched. I said you embarrassed me, to your face, while you were secretly funding my success. The funding wasn't secret to make you feel bad, I said. It was secret to preserve our relationship. What relationship? He asked. The one where I'm the successful brother and you're the family project. That relationship was a fiction. All relationships are partially fiction, I said. We show each other what we think the other can handle. You showed me your success because you thought I needed inspiration. I showed you simplicity because I thought you needed authenticity. We failed each other, Eleanor concluded. David Chen, who'd been quiet for a while, cleared his throat. If I may offer an observation, as someone who's worked with many wealthy families, this moment right here is crucial. You can either let the revelation of wealth destroy your relationships, or you can use it as a catalyst for something more honest. Easy for you to say, Tyler responded. You knew the truth. I knew facts, David corrected. Net worth, company valuations, investment portfolios. I didn't know the family dynamics, the hurt, the misunderstandings. Those are worth more than any financial statement. Uncle Frank stood up, pacing with nervous energy. So what happens now? When that article goes live, everyone will know. Our friends, our colleagues, our extended family. How do we handle that? With truth, I suggested. Tell them you didn't know because I chose privacy. Tell them we're working through it as a family. Tell them success comes in many forms, and we're learning to recognize them all. You make it sound simple, Madison said. It is simple, I replied. It's just not easy. Ashley pulled up the Forbes website on her phone. 15 minutes until the article goes live. 15 minutes until our sister becomes publicly recognized as one of the most successful entrepreneurs of our generation. While we become the family too blind to see it, Tyler added. Or the family learning to see beyond surface markers, Grandmother Betty suggested. Your choice. Eleanor stepped forward, taking my father's hand. I need to say something. Celia, we failed you. Not because we didn't recognize your success, but because we made you feel like you had to hide it. What kind of family makes a member feel safer in secret than in truth? A normal one, I said sadly. This is how most families handle money. Why do you think so many lottery winners end up estranged from their relatives? We're not most families, Robert said firmly. At least I don't want us to be. Yes, we made mistakes. Yes, we judged wrongly, but we can do better. Can we? Tyler asked. Because I look at that car and all I can think about is how much it cost, how that money could have been used, how different our lives could have been if we'd known. And that's exactly why I didn't tell you, I said, because the car would become more important than the person driving it. That's not, he started, then stopped. Okay, maybe that's fair. Jennifer had been quiet, but now she spoke. I keep thinking about the guest room offer. How patronizing we must have sounded offering charity to someone who could buy our whole house. You offered family to someone who needed family, I corrected. The gesture was real, even if the premise was flawed. Stop being so understanding, Ashley exploded. Be angry we judged you dismissed. You tried to force you into our small definition of success. Fight back. Why? I asked. So you can feel better about your anger so we can have a mutual explosion and call it even. That's not how healing works. Then how does it work? Madison demanded. I looked around at my family, these people I'd loved enough to hide from, protect from the truth of my success. They were all waiting for an answer, a roadmap to restoration. It works by choosing, I said finally, every day choosing to see each other as people first, bank account second, choosing curiosity over judgment, choosing love over leverage. It's not a one-time decision, it's a practice. Pretty words, Tyler said, but his tone had softened. But what does it mean practically? It means when you see my car, you ask about my day, not my portfolio. It means when I offer help, you consider whether you need it, not whether you deserve it. It means we stop measuring each other by what we have and start valuing who we are. After tonight, Robert asked, after everything we said and did, especially after tonight, I said, because now we know the worst of each other. You know I'm capable of grand deception. I know you're capable of cruel judgment. We've seen the shadows. Now we can choose the light. Eleanor stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me. For a moment I stood stiff, then melted into the embrace. My successful, secretive, complicated daughter, she murmured. I don't understand you, but I love you. That's enough, I whispered back. That's everything. One by one, the others approached. Some hugged, some stood awkwardly, all processing this new reality. The Rolls-Royce continued to gleam in the streetlight, but it had become background to something more important. 5 minutes, Ashley announced, checking her phone. 5 minutes until the world knows what we're just learning. Then we'd better figure out who we want to be when it does, Tyler said. He looked at his phone where his live stream was still running, then deliberately ended it, starting with stopping the performance and focusing on the reality. As we stood there in the November night, a family reshaping itself around new understanding, I felt something I hadn't expected: hope. Not for perfection, but for progress. Not for easy answers, but for honest questions. The reckoning had begun, and we were all still standing, bruised, confused, but standing, together. As the Forbes article countdown ticked towards 0, I found myself surrounded by family members who were seeing me clearly for the first time. The initial shock and anger had given way to something more complex, a mixture of hurt curiosity and tentative understanding. We'd moved from the street to sit on my parents' front porch, the Rolls-Royce still visible, but no longer the center of attention. "I need to understand something," Eleanor said, pulling her cardigan tighter against the cool night air. "When did it become about more than just privacy? When did you start actively testing us?" I considered the question carefully. I don't think I set out to test anyone. At first, it was just easier to stay quiet. The company was growing so fast, and every time I thought about telling you, something would happen that made me hesitate. "Like what?" Ashley asked, genuinely curious now rather than accusatory. "Like Tyler's post sophomore year," I said, looking at my brother. "The one about how real jobs were the only path to respect, how entrepreneurship without immediate profit was just expensive daydreaming." Tyler winced. "I was 22 and stupid." "You were expressing what the whole family believed," I corrected gently. "Success had a specific look, a particular path. Steady job, visible assets, traditional markers. My path was different, and I could already see how it would be received." "So you decided we'd reject you?" Madison asked. "I decided to wait until I had undeniable proof of success. But then something interesting happened. The more successful I became, the less I wanted to share it, because I started seeing how money changed relationships in my professional sphere." I paused, remembering those early days. I watched founders lose friends once valuations became public, saw family members suddenly develop urgent needs and revolutionary business ideas, witnessed how every conversation became colored by net worth. "We wouldn't have been like that," Jennifer protested. "You pitched me 3 business ideas tonight thinking I was broke," I reminded her. "What would you have pitched, knowing I had millions?" She fell silent, unable to argue the point. Uncle Frank leaned forward. "But the anonymous help, why not at least take credit for that? Let us know you were in a position to give." "Because gratitude is another kind of cage," I explained. "If you knew I'd paid off loans and funded programs, every interaction would carry that weight. Every family dinner would include subtle thanks or careful avoidance. I wanted to help without creating obligation." "Noble," Robert said, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. "Or controlling. You decided unilaterally what we could handle, what we deserved to know." "Fair," I acknowledged. "But look at tonight. Even thinking I was struggling, you couldn't just accept my choices. The intervention, the forced solutions, the inability to believe I might be okay. What would you have done knowing I had resources?" "Probably intervened differently," Ashley admitted. "Pushed you to use your wealth properly. Lectured about social responsibility and investment strategies." "Exactly. Different pressure, same fundamental issue, the inability to let me just be." Grandmother Betty spoke up. "Tell them about the loneliness." Everyone turned to look at her, then at me. "What loneliness?" Eleanor asked, her mother's intuition activating. I hesitated, then decided on complete honesty. Success can be incredibly isolating. The more the company grew, the harder it became to trust people's motivations. Were they interested in me or my resources? Did they like my ideas or my ability to fund them? Every relationship became a question mark. "Even with us?" Robert asked, hurt evident in his voice. "Especially with you," I said softly. "Because you matter most. Losing a friend to money is painful. Losing family, that's devastating. So I chose distance over risk." "But we lost you anyway," Tyler pointed out. You were at every dinner, every holiday, but you weren't really there. Not the real you. Which version is the real me? I asked. The struggling writer you all tried to save, or the successful CEO you're meeting now? Maybe I'm both. Maybe that's what I was trying to preserve. Madison had been quiet for a while, but now she spoke thoughtfully. I'm starting to understand. It wasn't just about hiding wealth. It was about protecting the part of yourself that existed before the money. The part of me that could ride the bus without it being a statement. Who could wear simple clothes without defending the choice? Who could live modestly without explaining why? The money didn't change who I am, but it changed how everyone sees me, including all of you right now. Can you blame us? Ashley asked. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. An hour ago, you were our charity case. Now you're our benefactor. How are we supposed to process that? By remembering I'm neither, I suggested. I'm just Celia, your sister, your daughter, your family. The bank balance doesn't change that fundamental fact. Doesn't it, though? Tyler challenged. Because now every family memory needs recontexting. Every offer of help feels patronizing in hindsight. Every concern seems misplaced. You've retroactively altered our entire relationship. Or revealed its true nature, Grandmother Betty suggested. The relationship was always based on assumptions. Now you have truth. Painful truth, but truth nonetheless. My phone buzzed. The Forbes article was live. Within minutes, the carefully maintained privacy would evaporate. The world would know what my family was just learning. There's something else, I said, knowing this was my last chance for private honesty. The hardest part wasn't hiding the success. It was watching you all worry, knowing I could solve problems with a phone call but choosing not to. Every time Mom cried about my future, every time Dad offered money he couldn't spare, it broke my heart. Then why continue? Eleanor asked, tears fresh in her eyes. Because the alternative felt worse. I've seen what sudden wealth does to families. The requests that start reasonable and escalate. The resentment when you say no. The expectation that success should be shared regardless of personal boundaries. I wanted to preserve us from that. By lying to us, Robert stated. By maintaining boundaries, I corrected. Yes, through deception. I'm not proud of the method, but I stand by the intention. The road to hell, Tyler muttered, is paved with good intentions, yes, but also with unconditional love that becomes conditional on sharing resources, with family bonds that transform into financial expectations, with relationships that die under the weight of money. Jennifer looked at Tyler, then at me. We've been talking about kids. Now I'm wondering what we'd teach them about family, about success, about truth after all this. Teach them that love and money are separate currencies, I suggested. That success has many faces. That family is about showing up for each other, not showing off to each other. Pretty words from someone who didn't show up honestly, Madison observed. I showed up as much as I could while protecting both of us from what money does to relationships. Was it perfect? No. Was it sustainable? Clearly not. But it came from love, however misguided. Ashley had pulled up the Forbes article on her phone. It's live. The headline reads, From Studio to CEO, How Narrative Network's Founder Stayed Grounded Through Public Transit. Stayed grounded, Tyler repeated. While we thought you were failing, the irony is physically painful. Should I read it aloud? Ashley asked, looking around for consensus. No, Eleanor said firmly. We'll all read it later privately. Right now, we need to focus on us, on family, on what happens next. What does happen next? Uncle Frank asked. Practically speaking, now that we know how do we move forward, I looked at each of them, these people I'd loved enough to deceive, who'd loved me enough to try saving me from a failure that didn't exist. We start with honesty, real honesty. Not just about money, but about expectations, fears, hopes. We talk about what family means when the playing field isn't level. The playing field was never level, Ashley pointed out. We just thought it tilted the other way. Then we acknowledge that. We acknowledge the hurt, the misunderstandings, the assumptions on all sides, and we decide whether we want a family built on authentic connection or performed success. What does that look like practically? Madison pressed. Do we pretend we don't know you're wealthy? Do we walk on eggshells around money topics? What are the rules? There are no rules, I said. That's the point. We make it up as we go with grace for mistakes and commitment to growth. We choose family over finance relationships, over resources every single time. Even when it's hard, Robert asked. Especially when it's hard, because the easy path is letting money define us. The hard path is defining ourselves beyond it. Grandmother Betty stood slowly, her age showing in the careful movement. I've lived long enough to see money destroy more families than poverty ever did. But I've also seen families choose each other over everything else. Which one do we want to be? One by one, my family members answered, not with words, but with presence, with the choice to stay on that porch, processing together, rather than retreating to private judgment, with questions aimed at understanding rather than accusation, with the messy, imperfect work of rebuilding trust after deception. I'm scared, Eleanor admitted suddenly, scared that knowing about your money will change how I see you, how I interact with you, scared of becoming the kind of mother who expects things from her successful child. I'm scared too, I admitted. Scared that every family gathering will now include subtle requests or careful avoidance of topics. Scared that the easy relationship we had, flawed as it was, is gone forever. Good, Tyler said unexpectedly. When we all looked at him, he continued. Fear means we're aware of the dangers, aware we could fall into patterns that destroy families. That awareness might save us. Ashley's phone buzzed with notifications. The article is spreading. Shares, comments, people tagging me, asking if this is really my sister. Our private family drama is about to become very public. Then we'd better figure out who we are before everyone else decides for us, Madison said. As we sat there in the darkness porch, light creating a small circle of illumination, I felt the weight of years lifting. The secret was out, the consequences unfolding. But we were here together, choosing the hard work of honest relationship over the easy path of dissolution. It wasn't the intervention they'd planned or the revelation I'd hoped for. It was messier, more painful, more real than either. But maybe that's what family really is, not the perfect story we tell ourselves, but the imperfect truth we choose to face together. So, Tyler said finally, a ghost of humor returning to his voice, do you actually take the bus by choice, or was that part of the cover story? I genuinely love public transportation, I confirmed. The conversations, the community, the environmental impact. That was never a lie. The one truth in an ocean of deception, he said, but he was almost smiling. The one truth that mattered, I replied, because it showed who I am beneath the money. Someone who chooses connection over isolation, simplicity over excess values over valuations. Someone who also owns a Rolls-Royce, Madison pointed out. Everyone has contradictions, I said. The car was a moment of weakness, a concession to success. I've driven it maybe 10 times. 10 times more than we thought you'd driven anything, Robert observed. The conversation continued, weaving between hurt and humor, accusation and acceptance. We were finding our way slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. The family that had gathered for an intervention was becoming something new, something that might actually survive the truth. As the night deepened and the temperature dropped, we moved inside, still talking. The Rolls-Royce sat forgotten in the driveway, just another car now that the secret it represented was shared. What mattered was in the house, in the voices still questioning, still processing, still choosing each other despite everything. The revelation was complete, but the real work was just beginning. 3 months had passed since that November night when everything changed. I stood in the community center gymnasium watching Tyler lead a coding workshop for underprivileged youth. The same brother who'd live-streamed my failure was now teaching kids that success didn't require traditional paths. The beautiful thing about coding, he was saying to a group of attentive teenagers, is that it doesn't care about your background, your connections, or even your degree. It only cares about your ability to solve problems and create solutions. One kid raised his hand. "But don't you need expensive computers and stuff?" Tyler smiled. "My sister built a company worth millions starting with a laptop that crashed every hour. Resources help, but resourcefulness matters more." He caught my eye and nodded a silent acknowledgement of how far we'd come. After the workshop, we walked to the parking lot together. He still drove his Tesla. I'd taken the bus. Some things had changed. Others remained constant by choice. 43 kids today, he said, pride evident in his voice. Started with 12. Word spreading that this isn't just another tech bro teaching vanity coding. "Because you're teaching them to think not just syntax," I observed. "Something my secretly successful sister taught me," he admitted. "That real achievement isn't about displaying success, but creating opportunity for others." We reached his car, but he didn't immediately get in. "I need to tell you something. I deleted all those LinkedIn posts, every one that used you as a failure example, sent apologies to everyone who shared them. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did, because keeping them up would mean I hadn't really learned anything. This isn't about saving face. It's about facing who I'd become and choosing to be better." Across town, Madison was in a very different setting. The Veterans Housing Office buzzed with activity as she reviewed applications with her team. The successful real estate agent who'd once measured worth in square footage now helped homeless veterans find stability. "This one," she said, pointing to an application. "Sergeant Martinez, 3 tours, 2 kids living in his car for 6 months. He qualifies for the Riverside property." "That's a prime location," her assistant noted. "The owner could get 3 times market rate." "The owner is getting something better," Madison replied. "The knowledge that a family who served our country has a safe home. Besides, the tax incentives make it financially viable, too. Doing good doesn't require being bad at business." She looked up as I entered, a genuine smile replacing the calculated one I'd grown used to. "Celia, perfect timing. Want to help review applications. Fair warning, some of these stories will break your heart." "Already broken and rebuilt," I said, taking a seat beside her. "Multiple times over." As we worked through the stack, she talked about her journey. "You know what the hardest part was? Realizing I'd built my entire identity on being the successful cousin. When I found out about your company, I had an existential crisis. If I wasn't the success story, who was I?" "You were always more than your commission checks," I pointed out. Easy to say, hard to believe. But this work, it's teaching me that success measured only in dollars is pretty hollow. Don't get me wrong, I still love a good sale. But now I love the right sale for the right reasons. That evening I had dinner with Ashley at the hospital cafeteria. She'd insisted on meeting there between shifts, saying she wanted me to see her world the way she'd finally seen mine. "Glamorous, right?" she said, gesturing at the fluorescent lights and industrial furniture. "This is where your doctor's sister actually spends most of her time, not at fancy galas or important conferences." "It's honest," I said, appreciating the parallel to my own simple choices. "Speaking of honest," she pulled out her phone, showing me an email. "The free clinic wants to expand services. They need funding. In the old days, I would have just assumed you'd write a check. Now I'm asking, would you like to visit first? See if their mission aligns with your values. Make a decision based on more than just my recommendation." The growth in that question, the recognition of my autonomy and values, meant more than any amount of money. "I'd love to visit," I said, "but I'm also curious about your involvement beyond funding. What draws you to the free clinic?" "What?" She laughed, but it was thoughtful rather than bitter. "Remember that life coach I tried to force on you? I ended up seeing her myself. Not Patricia, someone else. Figured anyone who thought they could fix others probably needed fixing themselves." And And I discovered that my entire self-worth was tied to external validation, the degree, the white coat, the respect. When I realized my failing sister had succeeded beyond my wildest dreams, without any of those markers, it forced me to question everything. "That must have been difficult," I said. "Difficult and necessary. The clinic work helps. There, I'm just another pair of hands. The patients don't care about my resume or my student loan debt or my published papers. They care that I listen, that I help, that I see them as human beings rather than cases." "Sounds familiar," I observed. Learned from the best, apparently, even when I didn't know I was learning. Later that week, my parents hosted their first community dinner. What started as Eleanor's way of processing our family changes had evolved into something larger. The dining room table that had hosted my intervention now welcomed diverse voices from across the economic spectrum. I arrived to find Robert deep in conversation with a young entrepreneur offering advice without the patronizing tone that had once characterized his guidance. "The key," he was saying, "is remembering that traditional metrics aren't the only measures of success. My daughter taught me that. Built an empire while we thought she was struggling, all because we couldn't see past our own definitions." Eleanor emerged from the kitchen carrying a casserole that could have graced any family dinner. "Celia, grab the salad, would you? Mrs. Chen brought her famous dumplings, and we need to make room." The ease of the request, the assumption that I'd help rather than write a check, showed how far we'd come. I was family first, resources second. Uncle Frank arrived with two of his mechanics' young men he was mentoring in business ownership. "These guys think they need fancy degrees to run their own shops," he announced. "I'm living proof that wisdom comes from experience, but my niece is proof that innovation doesn't follow traditional paths. Between us, maybe we can show them that success has many faces." He caught my eye, acknowledging the journey from offering me a receptionist job to recognizing my entrepreneurial spirit. Even Jennifer had evolved. She pulled me aside during dessert. "I owe you an apology, a real one, not just for that night, but for years of assumptions. I measured everyone by such narrow standards. Your choice to live simply despite having resources, it's made me question my own values." "Question them or change them?" I asked. "Both. Tyler and I are downsizing, not because we can't afford our lifestyle, but because we realized we were living for display rather than contentment. The guest room we offered you, we're turning it into a workspace for the coding program. Much better use of space." Dorothy and Grandmother Betty were the last to arrive, bringing photo albums that sparked equal parts laughter and reflection. Pictures of family gatherings where my simple appearance stood out among designer clothes, images that now told a different story than anyone had realized at the time. "Look at this one," Betty said, pointing to a photo from last Christmas. "Everyone trying so hard to look successful and Celia just being herself. We thought she didn't understand the assignment. Turns out she was playing a different game entirely. A game where the score was kept in impact rather than income," Dorothy added, though apparently she wanted both. The dinner progressed with the kind of easy flow that only comes from released pressure. No one performed success or worried about appearances. Stories were shared about failures and recoveries, about assumptions challenged and perspectives shifted. "You know what I've learned?" Tyler said during a lull in conversation. "That my sister's greatest success wasn't building a multi-million-dollar company. It was maintaining her values while doing it. I mocked her for taking the bus while secretly envying the freedom it represented." Freedom from what? One of the young entrepreneurs asked. "From the prison of other people's expectations," Tyler replied. "I built my whole identity on meeting those expectations. She built hers on authentic values. Guess which one survived contact with reality?" The conversation turned to the foundation I'd announced. Each family member had proposed community projects they would personally lead rather than just fund. The requirement for hands-on involvement had transformed charity into connection. "The coding program is just the start," Tyler explained. "We're creating pathways, not just teaching skills. Partner with Madison's housing project to ensure students have stable homes. Connect with Ashley's clinic for healthcare. Build an ecosystem of support. Systemic change rather than Band-Aids, Ashley added. Another lesson from our secretly strategic sister. As the evening wound down, people lingered, reluctant to end the genuine connection. The family that had once bonded over judging my failures now united in something more substantial. Eleanor stood to speak, tapping her glass gently. 3 months ago, we held an intervention in this room. We thought we were saving Celia from failure. Instead, she saved us from something worse, the poverty of narrow thinking. We've all been transformed by truth, difficult as it was. To transformation. Robert raised his glass. And to the daughter who loved us enough to risk our rejection for the chance at something real. To the bus rides that kept her grounded, Tyler added. To the simple clothes that reminded us fashion isn't character, Madison continued. To the studio apartment that proved homes are built on more than square footage, Ashley chimed in. To the hidden success that forced us to find our own, Uncle Frank concluded. As glasses clinked and conversation resumed, I felt the shift complete. We weren't the family we'd been the one built on assumptions and performance. We were something new, something tested by truth and choosing connection anyway. The Rolls-Royce I donated to charity the week before. The auction proceeds would fund transportation for elderly residents who couldn't drive. Tyler had filmed the donation not for LinkedIn clout, but to document a moment of choosing purpose over possession. You know what the best part is, he'd said as the car was loaded onto the transport. You're exactly the same person you were when we thought you were failing. The money didn't make you better. It just made us see you clearer. Or see ourselves clearer, I'd suggested. That too, especially that. Now surrounded by family who'd transformed their understanding of success, I felt the peace that comes from authentic connection. The intervention had worked, just not in the way anyone expected. Instead of saving me from failure, it had saved all of us from the success that separates rather than connects. Next month's dinner theme, Eleanor announced, is about failure. Everyone brings a story of falling short and what it taught them. No success stories allowed. I love it, I said, meaning it completely. Of course you do. Tyler laughed. You've been teaching us that failure and success are just different chapters of the same story. Your story, Ashley corrected, which turned out to be our story too. As people began to leave carrying leftovers and promises to return, I helped my parents clean up. The routine of washing dishes and wiping counters felt like meditation grounding in its simplicity. We good? Robert asked quietly, drying a plate with careful attention. We're better than good, I replied. We're real. Real is harder, Eleanor observed. Real is worth it, I countered. They exchanged a look, years of marriage allowing silent communication. Then Eleanor smiled. Our secretly successful daughter. Who knew that was the best kind to have? You did, I said. You just needed time to remember it. As I left that night, taking the bus home to my studio apartment in the building I owned, I reflected on the journey. The family that had tried to intervention me into their version of success had instead discovered their own. The truth that threatened to divide us had ultimately united us in something stronger than shared assumptions. The transformation wasn't complete, might never be complete, but it was ongoing each day, bringing new opportunities to choose connection over competition, authenticity over appearance, love over leverage. And that more than any company valuation or Forbes ranking felt like true success. Another 3 months had passed, bringing us to a warm May afternoon. The transformation that began with crisis had settled into something sustainable, though no less remarkable. I stood in the community garden that had sprouted from one of our foundation initiatives, watching my family work alongside neighbors they never would have met in their previous lives. Tyler was teaching a group of kids how to code irrigation sensors, turning gardening into a tech lesson. His transformation from LinkedIn influencer to genuine mentor had been complete. The man who once measured success in followers now measured it in the spark of understanding in a student's eyes. See, the moisture sensor tells the Raspberry Pi when the soil is dry. He explained, his patience evident. Then the Pi activates the water pump. We're not just growing vegetables, we're growing problem solvers. One of his students, Maria, looked up with bright eyes. Mr. Tyler, could we make an app so people can check their plots from home? That's brilliant, Tyler exclaimed. Want to lead that project? The girl beamed, and I saw my brother's genuine joy at her enthusiasm. No camera recording, no performance, just authentic connection. Madison was across the garden with a group of veterans, including Sergeant Martinez and his family, who now lived in stable housing thanks to her program. She'd evolved from someone who saw property as commodity to someone who understood home as sanctuary. The beauty of community gardens, she was saying, is that ownership isn't about deeds and titles. It's about investment of time, care, and connection. You own what you nurture. Martinez's daughter tugged on Madison's sleeve. Miss Madison, our tomatoes are bigger than the ones at the store. That's because you grew them with love, Madison replied, then caught herself. I can't believe I just said something that sentimental, and meant it. Ashley arrived from her shift at the free clinic still in scrubs, but carrying a box of medical supplies for the garden's first aid station. The doctor, who once wore her title like armor, now wore humility like a badge of honor. Rough day, I asked, noting her tired eyes. Beautiful day, she corrected. Delivered a baby for a teenage mom. Held her hand while she cried about not being ready. Reminded me that success sometimes looks like showing up scared and doing it anyway. Sounds like someone I know, I said, thinking of her journey from judgment to compassion. Learned from the best, she winked, even when I didn't know I was learning. Our parents had claimed a corner plot where Eleanor was teaching a group of elderly residents about companion planting, a skill she'd learned from grandmother Betty decades ago and only recently rediscovered. The marigolds protect the tomatoes from pests, she explained. Just like family should protect each other from toxic influences, sometimes protection looks like boundaries, not walls. Robert was building raised beds with Uncle Frank and his mentees, their conversation a mix of construction tips and life philosophy. Measure twice cut once applies to more than wood, Robert was saying. I spent years measuring my daughter's worth wrong, nearly cut her out of our lives with my assumptions. But you didn't, one young man observed. That's what matters. Only because she was patient with our ignorance, Robert replied. Success includes grace for others' growth. The Foundation's community dinner that evening was held in the garden itself, long tables set among the growing plants. What had started in my parents' dining room had expanded into something that belonged to the whole neighborhood. I helped set up, enjoying the physical work after a morning of strategic meetings. Jennifer found me arranging chairs, her own transformation evident in her soil-stained jeans and the absence of her usual designer accessories. Need help? She asked, grabbing a stack of plates. I can't believe this all started with us trying to save you from yourself. You did save me, I said. Just not how you expected. Your intervention forced me to choose between comfortable lies and uncomfortable truths. The truth won. Thank God, she laughed. Our kids are going to grow up in a family that values authenticity over appearance. What a gift. As if summoned by the mention, Tyler appeared with news. Speaking of kids, Jennifer's pregnant. We just found out yesterday. The celebration that followed was warm and genuine, free from the performance that once characterized family announcements. No one asked about nursery budgets or private school funds. Instead, they asked about hopes and dreams and what kind of world we were building for the next generation. As sunset approached the garden filled with the diverse community our family had learned to embrace, the entrepreneur Robert mentored sat next to the veteran Madison housed. The teenage coder Tyler taught chatted with the patient Ashley treated. Boundaries that once seemed fixed had dissolved into connection. Uncle Frank stood to speak, his voice carrying across the garden. 6 months ago, I thought success meant 7 dealerships and a retirement plan. Now I have 2 dealerships, 5 partners who started as mechanics, and a definition of wealth that includes watching young people build their dreams. To redefinition, someone called out, raising a glass of Eleanor's homemade lemonade. To redemption, another added. Dorothy had been documenting the journey in photographs, creating a visual history of transformation. She showed me her latest collection on her tablet. Images of Tyler teaching without performing, Madison advocating without calculating commission, Ashley healing without hierarchy. "This one's my favorite," she said, showing a candid shot of our whole family working together in the garden, dirty and laughing. "No one's dressed to impress. Everyone's just present." The anti-Instagram photo, I observed. "The most Instagram-worthy thing is not caring about Instagram," she replied. Another lesson from my niece, who had everything while appearing to have nothing. As darkness fell, solar lights installed by Tyler's coding students illuminated the garden. The conversation shifted to future plans, the Foundation's next initiatives, the expansion of programs that worked, and the reimagining of those that didn't. "We're considering a startup incubator," I mentioned, but not the usual model, one that values impact over exit, sustainability over scale. "With bus passes included," Tyler teased. "Public transportation is non-negotiable," I confirmed, smiling. "Some values don't change just because circumstances do." Grandmother Betty, who'd been quietly observing from her place of honor, finally spoke. "You know what this reminds me of? The community I grew up in, where success meant everyone eating, not just your own family getting fat. We lost that somewhere chasing individual achievement. But look, it's growing back." "Like the garden itself," Ashley mused. "From bare earth to abundance, just needing the right conditions and care." "And the courage to get dirty?" Madison added, showing her soil-caked nails with pride rather than embarrassment. The evening wound down naturally, people helping clean, without being asked, children running between the plants' connections, deepening with each shared task. The family that had once bonded over judging my perceived failure, now united in creating collective success. Tyler pulled me aside as things were wrapping up. "I need to tell you something. That live stream from the intervention, it's become my most requested content. Not the original, but my follow-up about how wrong I was, how narrow my definition of success had been. People are hungry for authentic transformation stories." "Are you going to build content around it?" I asked, curious about his direction. "No," he said firmly. "That part of my life is over, but I am writing about it. A book about redefining success, about the courage to admit you're wrong, about family that survives truth. Would that be okay? As long as you include the parts where you were insufferable," I teased. "Especially those parts," he agreed. "They're the most instructive." As I prepared to leave Yes on the bus, my family gathered for our new tradition of gratitude circle. Each person shared one thing they were grateful for from their transformation journey. "I'm grateful for losing my identity as the successful cousin," Madison said. "It let me find my identity as a useful human." "I'm grateful for the humility that comes from discovering you don't know everything," Ashley added. "Medical school never taught me that." "I'm grateful for children who teach me while I'm teaching them," Tyler contributed. "Reverse mentoring is real." "I'm grateful for a family that chose growth over grievance," Eleanor said, tears glistening. "I'm grateful for the daughter who loved us enough to risk our rejection," Robert added, his voice thick with emotion. When the circle came to me, I looked at these people who'd traveled so far from that November night. I'm grateful for an intervention that actually worked, just not how anyone planned. You did save me from the isolation of secret success. You brought me back to family. Even if we had to learn what family really means first, Uncle Frank observed. "Especially because of that," I corrected. "Easy love is nice. Earned love is extraordinary." As I waited at the bus stop that night, I reflected on the journey. The Rolls-Royce was gone, donated to serve a better purpose. The penthouse still existed, but hosted foundation meetings more often than solitary evenings. The company continued to thrive, but success was measured in impact metrics alongside financial ones. Most importantly, the family that had tried to force me into their framework had instead expanded their own. We'd all been transformed by truth, difficult as it was to face and accept. The intervention meant to save me had saved us all from the poverty of narrow definitions and shallow connections. The bus arrived filled with the evening commute crowd. I found a seat next to an elderly woman who smiled at my dirt-stained clothes. "Community garden," she guessed. "Community everything," I replied. "The best kind of success." "Amen to that," she agreed. "Too many people think success means not needing anyone. Real success means being needed and knowing who to need." As the bus rolled through the city, passing the neighborhoods that connected my various worlds, I thought about her words. My family had learned that lesson through crisis and transformation. We discovered that true wealth wasn't in hidden millions or public recognition, but in the ability to see each other clearly and choose connection anyway. The foundation work would continue. The programs would expand. The family dinners would grow. But more than any initiative or donation, the real legacy was a family that had faced hard truths and emerged more honest, more connected, and more genuinely successful than any of us had imagined possible. Some transformations happen gradually, others require an earthquake. Ours had been the latter, but the new landscape we'd built on the shifted ground was worth every moment of discomfort. We were no longer the family that gathered for Thanksgiving to judge and worry and perform success. We were the family that gathered in community gardens to grow things together, literally and figuratively. And that transformation, that was the greatest success story of all. A year had passed since that fateful Thanksgiving night. As November rolled around again, our family gathered once more at my parents' house. But everything about this gathering was different. The dining room that had hosted my intervention now buzzed with a different energy entirely. The table was larger, expanded to accommodate not just family, but the extended community we'd grown into. Tyler's star coding student Maria sat next to grandmother Betty, teaching her about the app they'd developed together. Sergeant Martinez and his family were there, his children playing with Ashley's newly adopted daughter. The boundaries between family and community had blurred into something richer. I arrived the same way I had a year ago by Uber to the bottom of the driveway, walking up in simple clothes. But this time, Tyler opened the door with genuine warmth instead of mockery. "Still refusing to drive, I see," he said, but his tone held affection, not judgment. "Some things don't change," I replied. "Some things shouldn't." Inside the walls displayed not just family photos, but images from our year of transformation. The community garden in bloom, the coding workshop graduation, the veterans housing celebration, the free clinic expansion, evidence of success measured in impact rather than income. Eleanor emerged from the kitchen, flower in her hair, but peace in her eyes. "Celia, perfect timing. Can you help Madison with the table settings? We're expecting 40 people." The ease of the request, the assumption of participation rather than patronage, showed how far we'd traveled. I was daughter and sister first, everything else second. As I helped Madison arrange place cards, she shared her latest project. "I'm working with the city to convert abandoned properties into affordable housing, not just placing people in homes, but creating communities. Your story taught me that where we live matters less than how we live. And who we live among," I added, placing Maria's card next to a retired professor who'd joined our garden project. Ashley approached with her daughter balanced on her hip. "Want to hold your niece while I help Mom?" The baby reached for me with chubby hands, and I took her carefully. This child would grow up in a family that measured worth in connection rather than possessions, impact rather than income. What a different world from the one we'd known a year ago. "She's beautiful," I said. "She's already wise," Ashley replied. "Doesn't care about my medical degree or my salary, just wants presence and milk, basic wisdom we complicate as adults." Robert called everyone to attention, tapping a glass with a spoon. "Before we eat, I wanted to share something. This time last year, we thought we were saving Celia. We discovered she didn't need saving, but more importantly, we discovered we did. We needed saving from our narrow definitions of success, our performative family dynamics, our conditional love." He paused, emotion thickening his voice. This year, I'm grateful not for what we have, but for who we've become. A family that shows up authentically. A family that measures wealth in relationships. A family that learned the hardest lesson. True success has nothing to do with what you own and everything to do with who you lift up. To lifting each other up, Tyler added, raising his glass of Eleanor's homemade apple cider. And to the sister who showed us that hiding in plain sight sometimes means living your values so clearly that others can't see past their own assumptions. Uncle Frank stood next. I want to add something. This year I downsized from 7 dealerships to 3. Best decision I ever made. Not because business was bad, but because I realized I was so busy managing success, I'd forgotten to live successfully. Now I spend half my time mentoring young mechanics who remind me why I loved cars in the first place. Success is a tool, not a goal. One of his mentees added, earning approving nods around the table. Jennifer, heavily pregnant with their second child, spoke up. Our kids will grow up with such different values than we did. They'll know that worth isn't measured in square footage or car models, but in kindness shown and connections made. What a gift. The stories continued around the table. Each person shared not their accomplishments, but their growth, not their acquisitions, but their contributions. The transformation was complete, yet ongoing, solid, yet still evolving. Maria, the young coder, raised her hand tentatively. Can I share something? Before Mr. Tyler's program, I thought people like me couldn't succeed in tech. Too poor, wrong neighborhood, no connections. But he taught me that code doesn't care about your zip code. And watching Miss Celia take the bus, even though she could buy 100 cars, taught me that choices matter more than chances. Choices matter more than chances, Eleanor repeated. That should be our family motto. Dorothy had been photographing the gathering, but now she set down her camera. You know what strikes me most about this year? We stopped performing family and started being family. The photos show it. No more posed perfection, just real people really connecting. As dinner was served, multiple conversations flowed. No single focus on interrogating anyone's life choices, no interventions disguised as concern. Instead, genuine interest in each other's journeys, challenges shared, and solutions crowdsourced, connections deepening over shared food and shared values. Grandmother Betty, now nearing 92, commanded attention with quiet authority. I've lived long enough to see fortunes made and lost families rise and fall, but this transformation from success as separation to success as connection, this is rare. Celia's billions matter less than the bridge she built back to us by risking our rejection. Not billions, Grandma, I corrected gently. Let's not exaggerate. Hundreds of millions, then. She waved dismissively. The number matters less than what you did with it, and more importantly, what you didn't do with it. You didn't let it define you or divide us. That takes a courage money can't buy. Tyler had been unusually quiet, but now he spoke. I've been thinking about that night a lot. The intervention. How wrong we were about everything, but also how right we were about one thing. Family should show up for each other. We just didn't understand what showing up really meant. What does it mean now? Maria asked, genuinely curious. Tyler considered. It means seeing each other clearly, not through the lens of our own expectations. It means supporting dreams even when we don't understand them. It means measuring each other's worth by contribution to the world, not accumulation from it. It means, Ashley added, admitting when you're wrong and growing from it. Do you know how many medical colleagues I've told about our family's journey? The universal response is amazement that we survived it. Not just survived, Madison corrected. Thrived. Look around this table. We're all more successful now by any meaningful measure. Not because Celia shared her wealth, but because she shared a different way of seeing wealth. The conversation turned to the year ahead. The foundation was expanding, taking our local experiments to other communities. The garden had inspired 3 others in neighboring areas. Tyler's coding program was being replicated in 5 cities. Ashley's free clinic model was attracting national attention. None of this would have happened if we'd stayed in our old patterns, Robert observed. We'd still be judging each other by car models and zip codes, missing the real opportunities to matter. The irony, Jennifer said, is that letting go of traditional success markers led to more traditional success than we ever imagined. The coding program has corporate sponsors now. The housing project wins awards. The clinic gets written up in medical journals. Success follows purpose, not the other way around. As the evening progressed, children played between courses. Elderly neighbors shared stories with young entrepreneurs, and the house filled with the kind of warmth that comes from genuine community. The dining room that had once hosted performative family gatherings now held authentic connection. I found myself in the kitchen with Eleanor during dessert preparations. She looked at me with eyes that had seen her daughter through every phase: the perceived failure, the revelation of success, and the journey to something beyond both. "Do you ever regret not telling us sooner?" she asked. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but I also see how the struggle to understand brought growth we wouldn't have achieved otherwise. Easy acceptance teaches less than hard-won understanding." "Your father and I talk about it often." She continued arranging pie slices on plates. "How we nearly lost you to our assumptions. How money almost mattered more than meaning. We were so focused on you having the right things that we couldn't see you being the right person." "You see it now," I pointed out. "That matters more than perfect history." "Does it get easier?" she asked. "Knowing someone you love has resources beyond imagination. I still sometimes catch myself about to worry about your bus rides, then remember you choose them. It gets easier when you remember the person hasn't changed just your information about them. I'm still the daughter who helps with dishes and argues about politics and forgets to call enough. Money didn't alter my essence." We returned to find Tyler proposing a toast. To the bus that carried more than passengers. It carried the values that kept our sister grounded. To the studio apartment that was never about square footage, but about remembering origins. To the simple clothes that reminded us fashion isn't character. And to the hidden success that forced us all to find our own definitions. To family that loves you at your lowest and stays humble at your highest, I added. To interventions that work in ways no one expects, Ashley contributed. To transformations that start with crisis but end with connection, Madison offered. To communities that grow from families brave enough to change, Uncle Frank said. As glasses clinked and conversations resumed, I felt the deep satisfaction of alignment. Inside and outside finally matched. Family knew truth chose connection anyway and built something larger than blood ties from that choice. "One more thing," Robert said, standing again. "I have an announcement. Your mother and I are selling the house." Shocked silence greeted this news. "Not to downsize," Eleanor quickly added. "To relocate. We're moving closer to the community garden. Found a place with room for the expanded family dinner space for workshop gatherings, proximity to the programs we're part of. This house served its purpose, but we've outgrown what it represents." From suburban isolation to community integration, Tyler summarized. "Even our parents are choosing connection over convention." The evening wound down with the same warmth it had sustained throughout. People helped clean without assignments, children fell asleep, and various arms plans were made for the next gathering. The intervention had become evolution, and evolution had become revolution. Quiet, personal, but profound. As I prepared to leave again by Uber to the bus stop, my family gathered at the door. But this time, no one walked me out to ensure I made it safely to public transportation. They trusted my choices because they understood my values. "Same time next year?" Tyler asked. "Same time, same values, evolved understanding," I confirmed. "Still taking the bus everywhere," Jennifer teased gently. "Still choosing connection over isolation," I replied. "The bus just happens to be where connection happens." Madison handed me a container of leftovers. "For your studio apartment in your multi-million-dollar building. The contradictions that make perfect sense once you understand the reasoning." "Thank you for understanding the reasoning," I said, meaning more than just transportation choices. Thank you for having reasoning worth understanding, Ashley countered. As I walked down the driveway, I heard Tyler addressing the gathered group. Who wants to hear the story of how my secretly successful sister taught us that true wealth has nothing to do with money? Multiple voices expressed interest, and I smiled. The story would be told and retold, each version adding nuance and understanding. The family legend was no longer about the failure who wasn't, but about the success that transcended definition. At the bus stop, I waited with the late-night crowd. Hospital workers ending shifts, restaurant staff heading home, students leaving late classes. My community, though they didn't know it. The place where I'd learned that everyone has a story, everyone faces challenges, everyone deserves dignity regardless of their bank balance. The bus arrived and I found a seat near the back. As we rolled through the city, I thought about the year's journey. The family that had tried to force me into their framework had instead expanded their own understanding. The intervention designed to save me had saved us all from the poverty of narrow thinking. Success, I'd learned, wasn't about what you accumulated, but what you contributed. Wasn't about what you owned, but who you lifted. Wasn't about separation from community, but integration with it. The bus rides kept me grounded not because I couldn't afford alternatives, but because choosing connection over convenience was its own form of wealth. My phone buzzed with a message from Tyler. Started writing the book, first chapter title. The night we tried to save my sister from success we couldn't see. Think it'll resonate? Truth always resonates, I typed back, even when it takes time to recognize. As the bus carried me home to my simple studio in my complex building, I felt the peace that comes from authentic living. The money remained growing through wise investment and strategic deployment, but it had found its proper place as tool rather than identity, as means rather than end, as responsibility rather than definition. The greatest fortune I discovered wasn't in hidden millions, but in family who could learn, grow, and choose love over leverage. Wasn't in Rolls Royces, but in relationships that survived revelation. Wasn't in Forbes features, but in facing truth together and emerging stronger. Some people spend their whole lives chasing success only to discover they've been running from connection. Others accumulate wealth only to find it builds walls rather than bridges. But sometimes, if you're very lucky and very careful, you can achieve success and maintain soul-build wealth and preserve worth rise high while staying grounded. It just might require taking the bus. Dear reader, if you've journeyed this far with Celia and her family, perhaps you've questioned your own definitions of success. What really matters? The car in your driveway or the connections in your life? The size of your house or the size of your impact? The numbers in your bank account or the number of lives you've touched? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more narratives that challenge us to think beyond conventional success. Share this with someone who might need reminding that worth isn't measured in wealth, but in wisdom, connection, and the courage to live authentically. Thank you for reading, and may you find your own path to success that enriches not just your life, but the lives of those around you.